Salem City Council and the Salem Urban Renewal Agency meetings. I will now call to order this evening's meeting of the Salem Urban Renewal Agency for February 25th, 2013. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Bennett.
Here.
Board Member Tessler.
Present.
Board Member Nanke.
Here.
Board Member Clausen.
Here.
Board Member Dickey.
Here.
Board Member Thomas.
Here.
Board Member Bernards.
Here.
Board Member Clem.
Here.
Chair Peterson.
Here. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Member Bennett, would you please move the approval of the special meeting agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I move approval of the special meeting agenda for the Urban Renewal Agency, February 25th, 2013.
It's been moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Nanke to approve the special meeting agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have time for public comment, but I see no one has signed up for that this evening. Was there someone here who wanted to make public comment at the beginning of this meeting that did not get on the list? All right, seeing no hands for that, we'll move on to action items. Member Bennett, would you like to introduce the action items?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I move staff recommendation on 4.A.
All right. It's been moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Clem, thank you, to move staff recommendation. Is there discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And Member Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move staff recommendation on 4B.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Clem to move the staff recommendation on item 4B. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And that concludes the business for this evening's Urban Renewal Agency, and that meeting is adjourned. All right, I will now call to order this evening's meeting of the Salem City Council for February 25th, 2013. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Tessler.
Present.
Councilor Nanke.
Here.
Councilor Clausen.
Here.
Councilor Dickey.
Here.
Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Bernards.
Here.
Councilor Clem.
Here.
Mayor Peterson.
Here. Thank you. Councilor Bennett, will you please move the approval of additions and deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move approval of additions, deletion, and revisions to the City Council agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Tessler to move the additions, deletions to the agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have time now for council comment. Do councilors have items they'd like to bring forth this evening? Councilor Bernards?
Hi, this afternoon, get the microphone up here. This afternoon, I got notice, thankful for the Statesman Journal. We had a little accident on South River Road, and this is actually a photo, I want to give credit to the Statesman Journal, of a semi-truck stuck underneath one of the overpasses. I am gravely concerned that if either of our two bridges are knocked out of commission, And we have another one of these on South River Road, that we're not going to have a good way out of the city of Salem over to the west side, or at least it'll make it very difficult. I just want to encourage the council to move forward with encouraging either the county or state or whatever agency or body that we need to see what we can do about straightening out those two underpasses. Way too many people have lost their lives hitting that wall, and now this is the second truck that I've known of in the last couple of years that's gotten stuck.
Thank you. Interesting experience. All right, other councilor comments this evening? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to a very special event in our council chambers tonight, and that is a very special proclamation. And if the representatives of McKay High School would like to join us, and also Councilor Diana Dickey and Councilor Cheryl Thomas, come and join me. We're going to present a proclamation.
Try singing a couple of notes.
I don't sing.
Is it at the top?
All right.
I can't see it. Oh, there it is.
As I told, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. As I told Dr. Sandy Husk, every time we do a proclamation, it's a little different. So we don't have a formal order. We sort of do it as we go. So I am very pleased to be here this evening and to have all of you join us this evening for this proclamation. And as I said, we often have more things to do with this than you might guess. All right, let's see. Our guests this evening, and I will give them a moment each to speak. We certainly welcome Dr. Sandy Huss, Superintendent of Salem-Keizer Schools, Ken Parshall, for the McKay High School Principal, Kelly Carlisle, the Director of High Schools. Kelly is here. Oh, hello. Thanks for being here. Nancy McMorris-Ask is here. Thank you. She's from the Chair of the School Board. Rick Kimball is Vice Chair of the School Board. He is over against the far wall. Chris Brantley is a board member, and I know Chris Brantley is here as well. Thank you so much. And there are several students from McKay. Perhaps the principal is going to introduce them? Okay. All right. I'm going to proceed with reading the proclamation. Whereas McKay High School is a valued part of the Salem community, serving thousands of students and their families over many years. And whereas the highly dedicated staff of this school is producing hundreds of graduates every year, ready for college, careers, and giving back to this community. Whereas McKay High School has tripled reading proficiency for Hispanic students over the past 5 years. And whereas McKay has increased reading proficiency for all students by more than double in the past 5 years. Whereas McKay math proficiency for all students has doubled in the past 5 years. And whereas McKay High School now has the lowest dropout rate of any large high school in Oregon.
Yay.
Yay! Absolutely yay. Absolutely yay. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Anna Peterson, Mayor of the City of Salem, proclaim McKay High School Appreciation Day tomorrow, February 25th. Thank you. Speaking of reading, it's my eyesight. February 26, 2013 will be McKay High School Appreciation Day. Congratulations. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Councilor Cheryl Thomas. She has a few words, and she'll pass it on to Councilor Diana Dickey, and they'll tell you how they have been connected with the school and in the community for a number of years. Your turn.
Thank you. First, I just want to say I'm so proud of the McKay students being here. Good to see your faces. I would like to see you come out more. That just does my heart good to see the young people in the presence of the council. So thank you for coming out. The staff, I want to thank you guys for keeping up the good work. It started with Principal Richardson, and you're taking on that role and continuing on those efforts. So I've been involved with McKay because I had a daughter graduate last year, and I had 2 sons of my own that attended there. Nieces, nephews, a host of nieces, nephews, sons, and daughters that still attend the school, and so I was a permanent fixture there. So I'm just so proud to see the involvement of all the students, not just at the school, but in the community around the McKay area, just stepping up and doing the beautification, which is one of my visions, and we're continuing that. And to just keep doing what you're doing, keep doing the good work and partnering with the community and the parents. The parents make a big difference in making sure that their students are graduating, as well as working with the teachers and the counselors and everyone. So I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud to even be standing here to say that. So thank you.
Yeah, I too want to thank the students for coming out here tonight. I just really appreciate that you're taking time on a school night to come out here, and for the staff and the school board that have worked so hard to make this happen. I've been a McKay parent for, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, and I get asked a lot, you know, well, what do you think of McKay? And it seems like every year I have something to add to the list. It's, you know, last year it was an improvement in math scores, a huge jump. I think it was the highest in the state of the improvement in the math scores. So it's just every year there's something to add to the list, and that is due to the hard work of the staff. And I know the students have a great program where they work with each other and they help out younger students, and I know that that's really been something that's helped with the success of McKay. So I'm just really thrilled that we're able to do this proclamation tonight, and you know, I hope that the success just continues, and I hope next year there's something else to add to the list.
Thank you. Mayor, City Manager, thank you so much. Staff and to the council. It's really a pride point, and a special thanks to Chuck Bennett. Chuck and I get a chance to work in a lot of different situations advocating for children and teachers and principals, and it's just nice to be able to share this moment with all of you. You know, everything takes a team, and definitely the strength in our district is in our students, in our parents, and in our staff. But the community team as well, whether you're helping us work on construction or helping us figure out traffic patterns or just working with us on volunteering around student achievement, we really, truly appreciate you. I've never been in a community that's had this kind of a dramatic change in a high school. I've never been in a community where the City Council has given us a proclamation. I've never been in a community that's had this much heart for students. So we really appreciate everything you do for us. Here's Chair Nancy McMorris Audix.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the mayor for her recognition of the exceptional achievement results at McKay High School. I think they reflect an attitude in our district's administration that every student can and will be successful. Leadership from the superintendent to the classroom drives high expectations and the belief in the ability of every student. And you can see from these results that the students have come through. Amazing. I hope you view this and other district successes as positive gains for economic development and as a selling point to attract business to town. Thank you again for your recognition of the outstanding progress at McKay.
Hello everyone, my name is Renelli Tapia and I'm a senior at McKay High School, and I'm so honored to be here with all you guys to have this day of McKay, so I'm really excited, and I just want to talk to you guys about how much I love McKay and our teachers for encouraging us to keep on working harder and just being our best, and that's why we're here today, just to show how good we are. So thank you for having us here.
Yes, and Arnelli is our student body vice president, and she is joined by 8 other student leaders in our audience. And all 9 of these young ladies are hustling back to high school tonight to help with our 9th grade parent orientation. So they do a lot of things behind the scenes as student leaders, and they give back often to younger students. So I want to thank you guys for carving out time tonight. Thank you, Arnelli. My name is Ken Parshall, and I'm the principal at McKay High School. And being the principal of McKay High School has been the biggest gift in my working career. It's been the most rewarding experience of my 27 years as an educator. The road to the lowest dropout rate in the state started 10 years ago. And that has been a steady decline in the dropout rate over time. And all of us know how important education is to our community, to our economy. And from 186 dropouts 10 years ago, one of the highest dropout rates in the state, to 10 years later, a decade march to the best in the state, only 3 dropouts. And I'll tell you right now, for us, 3's too many. And it breaks our heart that we lost 3. But we're going to keep doing the great work of keeping kids engaged in schools. We have a lot of adults working hard to make high school meaningful for students, and we have a lot of young people like Arnelli and, whoops, I'm sorry, Carol, and like Arnelli and the other students in the audience who lead as students. So thank you so much for honoring us tonight.
Thank you. And our counselors have gifts for the students, and I'll let them go ahead and distribute those. Everyone is going to receive, thank you. Everyone is going to receive a copy of the proclamation for your own scrapbook and a City of Salem pin like we like to wear, and make you feel even, we hope, closer to the City of Salem and a part of what we do every day in the City of Salem. Thank you. Well, that's a wonderful way to get a meeting off to a very positive start. And again, thank you, students, for coming down this evening. I understand that now you're going back to the school to work with the orientation program. So I know your work is not done yet, and we just appreciate so much you taking the time and coming over here this evening. And we hope you'll come back and visit us again and visit the City Hall. Keep in touch with us. All right, thank you very much. Our next item of business is public comment, and we do have a couple of people who've signed up. Benny Williams is on our list.
Who? Oh, okay, good. Thank you, John.
So, Benny, if you'd like to come to the podium, and you have 3 minutes. The orange light, the amber light comes on at the end of 2 minutes, and the red light at the end of 3.
Hi, good evening. I'm Benny Williams. I'm a resident of Salem. I'm also the current president of the Salem Kaiser NAACP. And I wanted to come in tonight to say hello and, excuse me, and to wish well the success of McKay High School. You know, as far as the NAACP is concerned, we've got a focused effort to continue to encourage the school district, the Salem Kaiser School District, to do well, and do well not just at McKay High School, but throughout the district. Specifically, you know, we've got a concern that the diversity of the district continues to need to have a light shone upon it. My comments are not geared to bring any disparaging comments toward the McKay High School or the district for that matter, but I did want to take a few minutes and mention, as it was said by Ken Parshall himself, the progress of McKay High School has not just happened in the last couple of years under his leadership. I wanted to personally just have the audience aware that the turnaround at McKay High School happened under Cynthia Richardson, who's now the principal at South High School. She spent quite a, and frankly, I just want to take this time to say she really went out of her way and did all and then some that could possibly be done by a single individual to bring in the resources to McKay High School and start this turnaround that we are celebrating tonight. And I just wanted to make it a point to say that McKay High School is a turnaround school. We need to do the same thing with some of the other schools. But as importantly as turnaround is to continue to encourage all of our students to understand that they can succeed. This school district is not about the black students or the Hispanic students or the white students. It's about all of the students. And as president of the NAACP here, we want to continue to bring focus and attention on the fact that that is what our mission is as a community, not just as an organization, but as a community, that we're all looking forward to having a positive impact on the students being successful throughout the district. Thank you. Is that me?
He has his own timers. Mr. Williams, thank you so much for coming this evening and sharing the joy of the proclamation with us and for your very special remarks. And
thank you.
Please keep in touch with us and always help us to remember special events or occurrences that the NAACP might be sponsoring, and keep in touch with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item is the consent calendar. Councilor Bennett, would you like to introduce the consent calendar?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move the consent calendar with the following pull. If I can make this out, 3.3C by Bennett. And then to notify you that Councilor Tesler has declared a conflict of interest on 3.2B and will not be voting on that issue.
Second.
Could you please repeat again which item that is?
Yes, Councilor Tesler declares a conflict on 3.2B and should not be counted as voting on that issue.
All right. Thank you very much. And there was a second. Thank you. All right. It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Clem to adopt the consent calendar with the notation that Councilor Tesler is not voting on item 3.2B under resolutions. And there will be a poll on item 3.3C by Councilor Bennett. And it was moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Clem. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right. We now move to public hearings, and we have several people signed up. For the first one is agenda item 4A. Would the recorder please introduce?
It's a continued hearing, Mayor, so we would...
That's right.
There
We
was
have
a
a staff report.
There was a reopening for a staff report and additional testimony, so we should start with the staff report, then followed, I believe, by the clerk's representative, Mr. Lean.
Thank you. All right. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson and councilors. My name is Glenn Davis. I'm the Chief Development Engineer in the Public Works Department. We are here to continue a public hearing from January 28th regarding acquisition of a sanitary sewer easement in the 1900 block of Wallace Road. To briefly summarize the prior public hearing, the property shaded in blue is the location of a proposed apartment complex at the 1900 block of Wallace Road. Harriet Drive is to the north, the future Marine Drive is to the east, the existing sewer mains on this map are shown in orange, and the conditions of development for this property require a sewer connection across a neighbor's property to the north owned by Don and Mary Clark. In order to construct a sewer main, an easement must be required from the Clarks, and I've highlighted the easement location in green, which is the primary subject of today's hearing. And just to hone in on that, easement is located in a 30-foot wide strip of land that functions as the owner's driveway. and will not interrupt their access to their property at any time. So to recap our public hearing from last month, sewer easement is needed on property owned by the Clarks. The sewer main will serve up to 15 acres of unserved properties. An appraiser was hired by the developer, who valued the easement at $200. The developer has negotiated in good faith, and the written record shows that the developer has offered as much as $23,500 for the entire access way. The developer was unable to come to terms with the Clarks, so the developer has requested that the city acquire the easement consistent with the provisions of SRC 66.090. In one update since our last meeting, the city has issued building permits for the westerly 3 buildings on the subject property, and these buildings can be served by gravity without requiring an easement on the Clark's property, and I'll describe that more later in the presentation. So to summarize where we, from the last hearing, the staff recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2013-6, declaring the city's intent to negotiate, acquire, and condemn a sewer easement on the property owned by the Clarks. The primary basis for staff's recommendation is that the acquisition meets the city's urban growth management policies. Therefore, this staff presentation will provide some basic background regarding the city's urban growth management program and explain how the staff recommendation meets those policies. So I'll start by showing the urban growth boundary on the screen, which is outlined in red. For the purposes of urban growth management, there are 2 distinct areas within the urban growth boundary. One is the urban service area, shown in blue, which generally has all the infrastructure already in place. The urban growth area, shown in pink, generally lacks adequate infrastructure to serve new development. So in order to develop in the urban growth area, a UGA development permit is required. And this proposed development that we're speaking of is in this urban growth area. So next, I will explain the urban growth policies that direct the urban growth management program. So I'll include some urban growth policies on the screen directly from the comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan. The program determines the extent and location of public facility extensions from the city of Salem and the obligation of benefited development to pay for the extensions. That's part of the urban growth policies of the comprehensive plan. Second, plans and develops a timely, orderly, and efficient arrangement of public facilities and services to serve as a framework for urban development. These comprehensive plan policies are implemented in our urban growth management chapter, which is chapter 66 of Salem Revised Code. And Salem Revised Code 66010 says that the chapter's intent and purpose is to construct required facilities to serve growth in a timely, orderly, and efficient, economically efficient manner. And again, I will illustrate later in the presentation how the staff recommendation accomplishes this purpose. But next, the wastewater management master plan is a detailed plan of the city's comprehensive plan, and it also has a number of management policies related to sewer that are pertinent to today's hearing. First, the basic design criteria of our wastewater plan is gravity sewer. Second, pump stations shall be minimized. And I'd like to point out that the master plan provides a map for area-wide facilities serving the entire urban growth boundary. Now, these master plan policies are implemented in our urban growth management chapter 66 as follows. First, developments must link to adequate facilities, and these adequate facilities are guided by the master plan, particularly by the area-wide facility map that's included in the plan. And lastly, the master plan policy for minimizing pump stations is also implemented in our chapter 66.110, which I'll quote here. It says temporary sewer facilities, including pumping stations, will be permitted only if the temporary facilities include all facilities necessary for transition to permanent facilities. So only in rare cases are pump stations considered a permanent facility. Generally, they're temporary. Now I'll transition from the generic policies to specific ways that those policies are implemented. And first, I'll provide some basic background on how a sewer system functions. So I'd like to show you how engineers have planned for a sewer system in this area related to our public hearing. So this map shows the general vicinity with streets and property boundaries in white. and sewer system is in orange. And the black arrows show the general ground slope of the area. So there is a 42-inch trunk main running north to south on the screen. This pipe serves much of West Salem, so it's really like a sewer highway. So I'm going to add a couple highway symbols just for clarity. Just like a highway, the sewer main has manholes, which are like on-ramps where the local sewer systems can connect. So I'll illustrate those on-ramps with arrows pointing to these red circles. So these 3 manholes are the entry points from the local area into the sewer system. So streets have arterial and collector streets to collect local communities to highways. While sewers have a system of main lines that connect from the local area into the highway system similarly. So each individual property flows into a sewer main before it goes into the large trunk system. So for this area, the engineers have determined that the sewer main should look something like this, shown in brown on the screen. So it's just like the collector road that feeds a highway on-ramp. Now the green circle on the screen shows the location of the proposed easement. The easement on the Clark's property is essential toward making the sewer alignment function efficiently. So now I'm going to take a few of these extraneous symbols off the screen and continue discussing the sewer design and urban growth management policies. Okay, so next, this proposed sewer main would serve approximately 15 acres of land. Now I'm going to illustrate how those 15 acres of land would potentially connect to the sewer main. I'll begin by showing this highlighted area in yellow, which is the boundary of the proposed multifamily development. And the small red circle on the screen is the location of its connection to the sewer main. So this would be the first area served. In yellow is the first area served by this main if it was constructed. So now I'm going to show how it would connect over time. Now I'll highlight the properties one at a time, how they might connect, and show their connection points with these red circles. And with the addition of each yellow area with its circle, I'm going to illustrate that the sewer main alignment provides orderly and efficient arrangement of sewer services for the 15 acres. So as I add each property individually, which I'll start doing here, as I add each property, notice on the screen that within the 15 acres, each property has an efficient point of connection. Each property has a logical connection to the sewer system, is well organized, cost-effective, and efficient. So staff recommends this configuration because it meets urban growth management policies for the entire 15 acres. Next, I want to discuss what the sewer system would look like without acquisition of the Clark property. First, the developer's project would result in 3 distinct project phases as it relates to sewer discharge. Here I show the first phase, which I call the northwest phase. This phase can be fully served by gravity. This phase includes 3 westerly buildings, which can be served by a gravity main as depicted with the brown line on the screen there. And as I mentioned earlier, these 3 buildings have already received building permits, and they have started construction based on the availability of this gravity service. If it were the only phase of development, no acquisition would be necessary at this time. So the easement location remains on the screen for reference as that green circle. So the next phase of development would be the northeast phase. Lacking an easement in the location of the green circle, this phase requires a pump, which is shown as a black dot, and a force main, shown as a solid black line. So this pump and force main would be owned and maintained by the owner of the apartment complex. The third phase of the project, which I call the southeast phase, requires a second pump and a second force main. Remember that this phase would disconnect a septic system that serves the neighbor's property. So this pump and force main would be owned by that property owner, the neighboring property owner, who would maintain and operate this system separately. So now not only we're going to look at this area, now I want to add how the entire 15 acres that we just saw with the gravity system, how it would potentially develop differently without the acquisition. So properties north of the easement would be the same as if served by gravity. They would connect to the public main no differently whether or not the easement is acquired from the Clarks, as shown on the screen. However, Properties to the south would likely need the same pump and force main systems so that we could have as many as 5 private pumps and force mains in the area southwest of the Clark property. So staff does not believe that this configuration meets the criteria of a timely, orderly, and efficient development of the area. Pump systems are higher cost to install, they're higher cost to maintain, they run a higher risk of failure, which has a greater potential to cause public health hazards. So staff's recommendation is instead to approve Resolution 2013-6, which would authorize acquisition of the easement on the Clark's property. So in conclusion, the proposed resolution implements urban growth policies. The acquisition would ensure service to 15 acres of property funded entirely by development. The acquisition is consistent with the gravity sewer criteria in the master plan. Installation of a gravity sewer is the most timely, orderly, and efficient service for the 15-acre service area. And lastly, I want to add that this acquisition is not developer dependent. This acquisition process would be no different whether it was a city-funded project or a developer-funded project. The only difference is that the acquisition is less cost to the city because it's developer-funded. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. All right, we have several people who have signed up this evening. I want to ask a quick question here. Thank you. First, would Mr. Wally Lean please come to the microphone, and you'll have 15 minutes to present the information. Is Mr. Lean here? Oh, there he is. Okay. I was looking on the wrong side of the room. Here we are. Welcome.
I've hard to miss most of the
Well, I just wasn't.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Let me start, and I'm going to be relatively brief and let Mr. and Mrs. Clark talk to you a little bit. We heard a presentation about a lot of policies and a lot of pumps and stuff, but I don't hear any of the answers to the questions that council brought up at the last session. You know, why certainly it works. I mean, it may be a lot of pumps, but nowhere did we hear that the pumps are prohibited. Why can't there be 1 pump instead of 4 pumps? I mean, this seems to me like a rationalization and a justification for backfilling a policy that was decided 6 or 8 or 9 or 12 months ago. I didn't hear answers to the questions you put last time. And I didn't hear answers to the questions that I put. And that is, where's your jurisdiction? This property is outside your city limits. You simply do not have the power and authority to do this. And if you follow your city attorney's advice that you grab your authority from Chapter 240, then what you've done is you've lost Chapter 66. The result of losing Chapter 66, which we already know you've lost Chapter 66. Your city attorney has advised Judge Hill and Polk County Circuit Court in the prior proceeding that Chapter 66-090 does not apply when you are annexing or when you're doing condemnation outside the city limits. So that's off the table. That's why 240 comes into play in the first place. 240 doesn't have any of the protections for the city that 66-090 has. For example, attorney's fees, title reports, expert fees, the cost of acquisition of the land. All of those things that under a developer paid for aren't paid for because Chapter 66 isn't there. You don't have the power and authority to compel this developer to make these payments. And why would you be spending city money to facilitate a private development when in fact you can't condemn it using that process? You have to condemn it using this as being a public process under 240, and there is no reimbursement from a developer when you do that. Why would you spend city money for private development? That's the result of going with 240. You lose 66 and all of the reimbursement, all of the mechanisms, all of the administration that's covered. You're going to fund this. If you vote for this resolution, grab a hold of your wallet and open it up, because you're going to be paying for this. You're going to be paying for all the staff. You're going to be paying for the lawyer fees. You're going to be paying for the land. You're going to be paying for the easement. And if I have anything to say about it, you're going to be paying my fees too, which you haven't paid the judgment that we got in the last case yet, which is a good question. Why hasn't that been paid? Now, I'd like to talk a couple of minutes about this 15 acres. If you look at those drawings, everything north of the Clark's driveway is not served by this. It's got its own gravity-fed sewer. 15 acres? It's not 15 acres. It's probably more like 5 or 3, because all of the property north of the Clark's driveway does not need this easement. The city has an easement on the north end. You saw it on the drawing. All of the property to the north of the Clark's driveway is served by the gravity-fed sewer. It's not ever hooking into this system. Why is this 15 acres? It's a mirage, just like everything else that you're being provided for here. I loved all the citations to the comprehensive plan, but I have provided you with memo after memo after memo about comprehensive plan provisions that say you don't have the power and authority to act outside your city limits. Your comprehensive plan specifically says that is Polk County jurisdiction. Where's Polk County? There's nothing in this record that says there's ever been any coordination with Polk County. That's required by your comprehensive plan. Why didn't staff tell you about that? That's not been complied with. You've got to take a close look at what you're being sold here and don't buy it. Vote no on this resolution. It's a bad idea, and it will come back to bite you, I guarantee it. I'll answer any questions you might have.
All right, do we take questions at this point? All right, counselors, are there any questions? All right. Okay, at this point, all of those who testify will have 3 minutes to testify. And I'm going to start with Don Clark, followed by Mary Clark. Good evening, Mr. Clark. And you know that the buttons, the lights come on at the end of 2 minutes, the amber, and
Yes,
then the
ma'am.
red at the end of
Yes, ma'am.
3.
Madam Mayor and City Council.
Could
my
you
name is
please,
Don Clark.
excuse me, speak into the microphone? There you go.
Excuse me. My name is Don Clark, and I live at 1990 Wallace Road, Salem, Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again tonight. I would like to bring up several points of interest. I sent you a video of the problems, and I assume you got it because I see it's in this presentation. I don't have the fancy equipment to be able to show everybody else all the stuff, but hopefully the council members can follow along with me. The council stipulated in the original permit for construction that backfill should not restrict the natural flow of water or create secondary ponding. Hans Tygeson knew about the water problem at that location. Hans told Vince, the owner of the property adjacent to mine, and I, that he would drain the area into the lower slough. Well, so I called Don Whitehurst and sent him a video of the water problem, which I hope the council members were able to see that video. I sent it to some other people, they didn't get it. Mr. Tygeson posted a no construction sign and told me that he would not drive his heavy construction equipment on our paved road. They did it anyway, and they called the police to have me removed from my property when I tried to stop him. He built the line without an easement, and he trespassed on my property to do it. We received notice from the city that they intended to begin sewer construction weeks after Mr. Tygeson had already installed the sewer link that we're talking about. If that's a city installation done by an agent of the city, why wouldn't they know it was installed weeks later? Don Whitehurst called me later on and asked if they could come down and finish the job. Evidently, the job hadn't been finished, but the line had already all been covered up. But the worst of it all is that right now, Mr. Tygeson is operating a dump for construction debris on the lower part of his property. It is clear that it is debris from the houses and barns previously located at 1980 Wallace Road. On top of the existing sewer line, the 42-inch sewer line that is within the 100-year floodplain. A tremendous amount of water goes down there if anybody has been here when those floods occurred the last several years. And strictly, the easement for that main 42-inch water line stipulates that no backfill or embankments should be on this without permission from the city. Well, I checked with the city today, and Mr. Tygeson does not have permission to operate a dump down there. And believe me, it is a horrible sight. It's in my backyard. He says he's from West Salem. He's not. He's from West Lynn. His beautiful family lives in West Lynn. He's dumping this horrible-looking stuff in my backyard. I don't think he would do it in his backyard. I'd like to also quote that Chapter 66 states that with the power granted to this council goes the obligation to protect the rights of individual property owners. It is the aim and desire of the city of Salem to obtain the necessary property with fairness and equity to all. The city has a dual responsibility: recognize and protect the rights and the property of the owners affected by acquisition of land, and complete, competent, and effective service to the public. I made it.
You did. Right on the button. Thank you very much. Counselors, do you have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Clark. And Mary Clark, followed by Herb Shaw.
Multiply for supporting Oregon State University.
Yes.
And McKay, too. That's awesome. Our kids
Good
are
evening.
graduates of South Salem. Good morning, or good afternoon. Madam Mayor and Salem City Council, here we are again. My name is Mary Clark, and I reside at 1990 Wallace Road Northwest. I just want to clarify a little bit what Mr. Davis was saying about the $23,500 offer that was on the table. That was for the full road. That was not for the 200 square feet. And that sale would have left us landlocked, actually. It was suggested during the last session that my family has been unwilling to negotiate an easement settlement with Mr. Tygeson. This is not the case. Documentation submitted to the City Council implies that a settlement had been agreed upon in December of 2012 and then backed out of by us. We never saw Mr. Tygeson's additions to the proposed agreement. The submitted document refers to a nearly 4-hour meeting held on December 5th at my son's place of business, and this was in Gresham. Since the court case to determine the condemnation of our property was to be held on the morning of December 7th, any resolution from that meeting was contingent upon a signed document being completed before the end of our attorney's workday, which was December 6th, excuse me. We were not, as Mr. Tygeson wanted, going to call off our attorney before the court case to forestall additional legal fees without a binding agreement on Mr. Tygeson's part. The email from his lawyer is dated December 6th at 4:04 p.m. Even if we had received a copy of the draft, which we did not, at that point there was not enough time for the document to be commented on and approved by our attorney before 5 p.m. This is why the settlement fell through, not because we backed out in negotiations. Every reasonable offer presented to us has been accepted with the caveat of needing attorney's fees. An attorney we would not have needed to hire on this matter if our property rights weren't being infringed upon. The court agreed and entered judgment for all of our attorney fees. It was also put forth in the last session that the Vanderwagen house, the yellow house, requires a sewer hookup due to the removal of its septic. Another reason why Mr. Tygeson's development company wants the city to condemn our property. Yet, in annexation case C-704, the documentation provided to us as neighboring landowners states the owners of this property are negotiating the sale of this property to allow it to be incorporated into the proposed development. This documentation is dated as being received on August 5th, which means this property was zoned as multifamily residential under the premise that it had to be included in the 1980 Wallace Road development. The money Mr. Tygeson has spent on the construction and the installation of infrastructure has been a calculated risk on his part. Our ability to negotiate a fair price for the use of our land should not be infringed upon because he has spent those funds before acquiring an easement. Thank you very much for your time and your thoughtful consideration of this matter.
Thank you.
We
Councilors, are there any questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to testify. Herb Shaw?
Madam Mayor, I have no further comments to make at this time.
Thank you very much. All right. We'll start with Hans Tygeson. Or Mr. Shipman, are you prepared? I'm sure. And my understanding, Mr. Shipman, is that you have 3 minutes. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, Madam Mayor,
All right,
that's my
thank
understanding
you.
too. I need
Okay.
to strap on the rockets and go.
Okay.
I have a lot of information to cover. And thank you again for this opportunity. If staff hasn't already done so, I would like to have Mr. Davis's PowerPoint presentation actually formally entered into the record at this time. In 2011, HC Properties and Mr. Tygeson filed for a urban growth area application, 11-1. It was approved by the city subject to a couple of conditions of approval, one of which was to construct a new storm drain. The other was to construct a new 8-inch sewer line. Public Works staff evaluated both options, and the key here in this case happens to deal with the storm sewer. There are 3 options that were looked at. One was running a line down the north line of the Clark's property to the existing sewer main on the easterly edge of their property. The second was going to Linda Lane to the west. And the third was what I call the driveway option, or the easement over their property. I want to briefly talk about specifically Linda Lane, and I want to specifically talk about the driveway option. Because at the last hearing, there was a lot of angst about why couldn't we go to the west of Linda Lane. Well, I think staff did a great job as far as identifying the issue of with respect to the pumps and all the pumps that would be required if we didn't go with this easement. If you went to the west across Linda Lane, a couple of key things happen. First, you have to cut Wallace Road. Now that's going to be impacting that facility. Second, you're going to be pumping up to Linda Lane. This is not gravity fed. Linda Lane is going to require a pump. And as indicated by staff, pumps can fail. Third, Linden Lane is not a publicly owned street. It's privately owned. So we're going to be in the same situation if you go to Linda Lane than if you went the easement route. Fourth, in your packets that I've provided to you, the American Village Corporation that owns that association and those streets where Linda Lane are refuses to negotiate with us and give us any sort of easement. So we're in this conundrum. We're right in the same spot as we are with respect to the Clark's easement or the driveway option. They've repeatedly told Mr. Tygeson that they will not grant an easement there. Let's talk about the driveway option real quick. That's gravity fed, not pump. And as staff has identified, it's the least intrusive to any private property owner. The Clark's property is already encumbered. It already has a easement, a 15-foot easement for the city of Salem, running the entire length. It also has a 10-foot easement for PGE. The Clark's driveway is in the urban growth boundary. It's not in the city, but ORS 224.020 does not prohibit the city from going out and extending that city service, that line, either inside the city or outside the city. And I see I've got a yellow light. This is crazy. In my packet, I've identified the summary that Mr. Tygeson did with respect to contacting either through himself or Universal Field Service. Hopefully, he'll be able to address that for you. In Mr. Lean's last presentation, a question was brought up, and Councilor Bennett raised this too, as to whether or not the City of Eugene versus Nalvin prohibited what we were trying to do in this case, and I've got a red light.
Yes, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to close up.
The thing that I'd like to address with respect to Eugene versus Nalvin is that Mr. Lean has at least intimated that that case stands for the proposition that you can't do what you're doing. And what Nalvin stands for is Nalvin essentially stands for that the authority to properly dispose of sewage and drainage from adjacent territory, it does not authorize a municipality to compel extraterritorial connection to the sewer system. So it doesn't, Nalvin doesn't stand for the proposition that the city can't extend services.
Excuse me, I am going to have to ask you to stop because it is over the 3 minutes. However, I can ask councilors, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Shipman?
Thank you.
No? All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Tygeson, did you want to testify?
Also, Madam Mayor, I had one of my professionals from my team that didn't see the list to sign up from Universal Field Services. Can they get their name added to the record?
Yeah, we can add that.
Okay. All right. Once again, for the record, my name is Hans Tygeson. My address is 825 Harriet Drive, Northwest, Salem, Oregon, 97304. I just want to talk a little bit about the years of negotiations that have went on trying to secure this easement. Several years ago, in 2010, I approached Don, tried to obtain an easement from him. Don said he would provide me with the easement if I provided him with sewer and utility hookups for future development for his property. I spent about $3,000 with surveyors and attorneys and had that prepared. Mr. Clark said wasn't willing to sign, and then he said he wanted to develop his property into apartments. So I spent money with engineers, came up with a site plan, came up with cost estimates, came up with performance, and Don said, sorry, changed my mind. Then in August of 2011, Don said I need a 42-inch storm drain from my property 1,400 feet down into drain it into the Willamette Slough. So at that time I knew $250,000 at cost for that storm wasn't going to be affordable, and so I offered to buy the property if I could acquire it in a timely manner so I could annex it into the city of Salem. And Don said no, he wasn't willing to sell. I tried to offer him $54,000. He said no, not wanting to sell. A few months later, after the deadline passed, Don came back and said I am willing to sell, and said it, it's a six-figure number. At that time, I told him, I said, I'm going to just force to proceed with Chapter 66 through the city to secure it. And that started this lengthy process that you see on this paper between me and Universal Services of our contact with Don. Last November 30th, it wasn't the 6th, but it was November 30th, we went up to Brian's office. He said, we really need to come to an agreement. We spent 4 hours meeting with the Clarks. They said $12,500 plus attorney's fees. The next day it went up to 27, then to 30, but Donald Clark did present an offer, which I do have here in my overheads, At noon, I came back and said, give me a few hours to get my attorney, Mark Shipman, to draw it up. 3 hours later, I came back. As Mary said, it was like 4:04. I said, I got the agreement, got the check, ready to go. And they said, too late. I've tried my hardest to get this agreement. It's been a long, lengthy process that I know I think we'd all like to get behind us, and I just ask council. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Tygeson? All right, thank you very much. John Lewis, followed by Mike Erdman.
Hi, my name is John Lewis, 825 Harriet Drive, Northwest, Salem, Oregon. I'm Mr. Tygeson's project manager for the project we're speaking of. I'd like to show the council I carry a certification in wastewater systems operations and collections. I've spent 9 years at Mount Hood Meadows Ski Resort operating their wastewater collections and treatment facilities in the environmentally sensitive Mount Hood Wilderness area. I'd like to say to the council that I feel it would be environmentally irresponsible to put a pump station at the bottom of that property when we're 30 feet from a gravity line. The EPA requirements of design require that we build with a gravity system when the system is possible. The reason, as a standard rule of practice, all sewers are ran on a gravity basis unless there's physical barriers, such as elevation changes and topography issues, none of which exist in this case. Very rarely do we pump due to land acquisition issues. This is the purpose for the city and the state statutes that you've heard referred to, and why there is so little qualifications for the land to be acquired. The intent is to follow the most practical system to be constructed without the use of mechanical means for the transport of sewage. The EPA guidelines require systems designed to reduce the possibilities of SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows. This is best achieved by reducing the dependence on mechanical systems to convey the sewage and install gravity systems in their place. A gravity system requires a complete stoppage of flow and blockage of the line to experience a sanitary sewer overflow, where a pump system, on the other hand, has numerous items that can fail that would result in sanitary sewer overflows. A simple power outage or a failure of backup power to run could result in a catastrophic spill. The Clarks themselves have voiced, there you see I have a letter up here from Mr. Clark, Brian Clark, and they voiced their concerns with the fragile environment and their desire to protect it. As you see, this is a letter from Mr. Clark stating that their farm is a self-sustained farm and that they're very concerned about any possibility of environmental detriment to the area. This is best achieved by crossing the existing easement to the north and installing an 8-inch pipeline to serve the properties and not installing a pump system right next to the gravity line. I would like to reiterate it would be environmentally irresponsible to install a pump sewage system to service such a large amount of residents when there is a gravity route available. It is not like a private residence, whereas if you just go and ask them to stop using their bathroom.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Are there questions by councilors? All right, thank you very much. Mike Erdman, followed by Mark Grenz.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mike Erdman with the Home Builders Association of Marion and Polk Counties, 385 Taylor Street Northeast. Here tonight to support the easement acquisition request. And the reason that the Home Builders Association is before you is that, having watched the public hearing back in January, frankly, we're concerned about the precedent. This, as I understand it, is the first time this type of easement acquisition has gotten this far in the process to go to the council for possible condemnation. Chapter 66 is not just about providing infrastructure needed by one developer or one property owner. It's about providing the infrastructure that we need in a wise, well thought out, orderly fashion. And that benefits the city, but it also benefits the development community as well. Chapter 66, as you know, as we've talked about, puts the burden on the developer to go out and try and negotiate in good faith for those easements. And if that fails, you end up in this process here at the council. And I would say that absent an especially good reason not to move forward with the easement acquisition, moving forward with this really carries out the intent of Chapter 66, and that provides good public infrastructure in a way that's efficient for the city. Now, I can see potentially there may be a reason that you wouldn't move forward with the easement acquisition, and that's if there was, let's say, an especially burdensome burden that was put on the property owner. You know, if it required the condemnation of their house, for example. But that's not the case here at all. This is about as minimal an impact as you can get. We're talking about boring a sewer line under the driveway, not even going from the surface and excavating. It's very, very minimal impact. The conditions of the UGA permit that Mr. Tagason had require him to acquire that sewer easement. And he has done that in good faith. And I think you've heard that he has offered as much as $24,000 for an easement that's been appraised at $200. Our concern from an industry perspective is that if the city is unwilling to initiate the easement acquisition after a developer has tried to negotiate in good faith, then developers run the risk of absolutely being held over a barrel by a property owner that knows they can ask for the moon because the developer has no choice. And that's got the potential to drive up the cost of housing. It's bad public policy. And so we would urge you to vote in favor of the easement acquisition.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony this evening. Councilors, do any of you have questions? No? All right. Mark Grenz, followed by Barry Bliss.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is Mark Grenz, and I'm with Multitech Engineering. Our office is at 1155 13th Street Southeast in Salem. We're the engineers that are working with Mr. Tagason on this project now and trying to complete the infrastructure. I just wanted to be sure that I had an opportunity to mention to the council that with the proposal, as Mr. Ergman pointed out to you, is that we're intending to install this sewer line through a sleeve that's pushed underneath the driveway so the driveway would not be disrupted. Now that driveway is the property in question, the driveway we're talking about is 25 feet in width. It's encumbered by a 15-foot wide access easement granted to the city of Salem and a 10-foot utility easement granted to PGE. So the entire width is already encumbered on the surface and underground in some respect. We're going to install this pipe approximately 8 feet deep through a sleeve, so there'll be no disruption to that driveway at all. They'll never even know that pipe is there. And it's a piece of property that once Marine Drive is installed, which is one of the city's transportation goals out there, this strip of land will no longer serve any real purpose to the Clarks because they'll get their access off of Marine Drive, that property will. So this is a minimal impact, and I also want to emphasize what Mr. Ergman did with regard to 66. You know, we've been involved in development in Salem for a long time. We sat on the committees that were involved in the development of 66 clear back when Mr. Hanley came to town, and we started working on the urban service area till today. And 66 sets out a promise to the development community relative to what will happen if they put forth the efforts to try to acquire rights-of-way and easements. And it's incumbent upon the city then to follow through with that commitment on the other side. If you don't do that, like Mike indicated, we'll have a problem getting development to function in an orderly fashion. We'll be doing what 66 was developed to stop, which is leapfrogging developments, building costly temporary facilities in order to bypass this logical extension of good urban services, only to place that burden then back on the public and the city to have to ultimately build those facilities to take these temporary facilities out of place. So it's important that we not lose sight of what 66 and why it was put in place and what it was intended to do. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have of me.
Thank you very much. Are there questions by any of the councilors? All right, we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. And Barry Bliss.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Councilors. I am Barry Bliss. I work for a right-of-way company called Universal Field Services. Our company's been in business since 1958, so we've been around for a little while. And I have been a right-of-way agent for Universal for approximately 2 years. And in that time, I've had the privilege of negotiating either acquisition or relocation on approximately 140 files. So I was asked to come and just share that on March 31st of 2012, I made an initial offer to the Clarks. It was provided in accordance with ORS 35, eminent domain public acquisition of property, and in accordance with the Federal 49 CFR Part 24 Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition for Federally and Federally Assisted Programs Act. And this offer was in excess to the appraised amount for the 10 by 30 foot easement, which also included a 20 by 30 foot temporary construction easement. We provided that offer in both writing and verbally. I had approximately 5 phone conversations with Mr. Clark, and then I had 2 site visits where I met with him and his family and discussed the offer for the easement of their property. In those site visits, some concerns came up, which were some concerns that I then brought back to HT Investments and Hans and communicated those concerns that the Clarks had to Hans. And when we received the answers, from him, I brought them back to the Clarks, to try to, resolve, this matter, bring it to a resolution in our negotiation. On May 4th, it was, I received a fax when we were kind of in the process of negotiating, a fax of a letter dated May 3rd that the Clarks declined both offers at that time that were made, both the initial offer and then a proposed settlement offer that we were discussing to try to settle this file for HT Investments in the city of Salem and the Clarks.
Thank you very much. Councilors, do any of you have questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to testify. All right, I believe that now concludes all of those who were signed up on the list to testify this evening. We go back for rebuttal. Oh, all right, questions of staff. But first I have a question for our city attorney. I failed at the very beginning of this public hearing to ask for any declarations of ex parte contact. Shall we do that now?
Yeah, that would be appropriate, if there have been.
All right, there have been. And councilors? Councilor Clem, we'll just go down the line. Councilor Bernard. All right, Councilor Clem.
If I could, Madam Mayor, thank you. We drove by and noted on a tour for the third bridge where the various properties were. We had no contact, or I had none, with any of the parties who may even be remotely or indirectly involved. So no real formal ex parte contact other than a drive-by to see the property.
As we were driving somewhere else, you mean? Yes, all right. Councilor Bernard?
I would say the same thing, other than when we drove by, we were probably doing 30 miles an hour, so it really was a glimpse, and that was it. No other contact.
Councilor Thomas?
I agree with the first 2 councilors, no contact.
All right, Councilor Dickey?
Yeah, same thing. It was just pointed out this is the property and no other discussion happened.
Right. I also was on a ride-along and the same experience in the van that I was in. Other councilors? No. Oh, yes, Councilor Nanke.
Yeah, we'd driven by as well on a tour of the third bridge, and staff had said, oh, and there's the property that, but it was quick. It was like, I remember seeing some foundations that's the extent of my recollection of the visual.
We were on Wallace Road, right?
Yeah.
When we did that, okay. Any others? All right, no, okay. All right, we've done that. And now we'll hear from staff. Are there questions of staff? No, all right. There are none. Are there none? All right, there are none. And now we'll have rebuttal. And to provide rebuttal, will that be Mr. Lean? Mr. Lean, you'll have 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
The Clark property is outside the city limits. The Clark property is outside the city limits. For all of those of you who testified, you have to understand the Clark property is outside the city limits. SRC Chapter 66 does not apply. Your city attorney has already said that. So all of this daydreaming about Chapter 66 being the panacea, in this case being the precedent setting, none of that applies because this property is outside the city limits. What is the difference between going to Linda Lane and going across the Clark property? Linda Lane's inside the city limits. The Clark property is not. Mr. Shipman said, well, we can't get, we're in the same boat. We're in this conundrum because we can't get it from American Properties to go across Linda Lane. But yes, you can, Mark. Use Chapter 66 because Linda Lane is inside the city limits and Chapter 66 applies. And all you have to do is ask. You know how to do that because you've already done it to the Clarks. Clark's property is outside the city limits. Linda Lane is inside the city limits. The original drawing for this property, which was put forth to you in the UGA hearing, shows the pumped system over Linda Lane. I've provided you with that drawing in previous memos. The condition of approval doesn't say go north across the Clark property. The condition of approval in the UGA permit says go Linda Lane. Linda Lane is inside the city limits. Chapter 66 applies. Seems to make sense to me. Rather than getting rid of 66, going outside your city limits, trying to rely on 224, and a case that's going to end you up in circuit court and probably the Court of Appeals over jurisdiction, when in fact you can do what Mark Grenz originally proposed to you in the UGA permit. Nobody said, oh, we can't pump, we can't do this, we can't do that. In fact, we've heard tonight that in the annexation case there was discussion between Mr. Tygeson and the Vanderwagens about including those properties in this development. What happened to all that? This is such a bad idea. Not only is it illegal, it doesn't make budgetary sense because it's going to cost you a fortune, and practically you're being sold a bill of goods. Go back to where you were in 2010 and 2011. The UGA permit comes through, we're going Linda Lane. Annexation comes through, we're going Linda Lane. As soon as we get to the point of construction and building permits, oh, we can't go Linda Lane. We got to go across the Clarks. We can't go across the Clarks. The Clarks property is outside the city limits. You can't touch it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do councilors have any questions? All right. Councilor Clem, would you like to introduce a motion? Oh, I have to close the hearing first. Hearing is now closed.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I move staff recommendation that Salem City Council adopt resolution number 2013-6.
It's been moved by Councillor Clem and seconded by Councillor Benars to move staff recommendation. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the motions say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. I suggest that we take a brief moment recess and let people adjust, and some people probably are ready to leave the chambers. And we'll come back in just a few minutes. Thank you. Are we good? All right. I will call our meeting back to order and proceed with the next item on our agenda this evening, which is the second public hearing. And I believe that we have a staff report on this item. This is 4B.
The recorder needs to introduce this one.
Oh, and I would say, why don't we do our ex parte disclosures at this point rather than wait? Oh, you have to introduce it first. All right, thank you.
The Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of considering review of the comprehensive plan change, zone change partition 1208 for property located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Highway 22 and Cordon Road Southeast. This will be a new hearing and will result in a decision that supersedes that rendered by the Planning Commission. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward applicable criteria found in Salem Revised Code Chapters 63, 64, and 113. Testimony may also address any other criteria a person believes applies to the decision. The record of the Planning Commission action with respect to this request is part of the record before Council. Failure to raise an issue in the hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
Thank you very much. Disclosure of ex parte contact, Councillor Benars.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. I want to declare an ex parte contact with one of the parties, Bill Berman, in review of the Planning Commission's case concerning the particular piece of property on the northwest corner of Cordon and Highway 22. The nature of the contact was casual, unplanned meeting where the contact spoke of his frustration with the planning process. No particular information about the project was discussed.
Thank you. Councillor Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After this was called up, I received a voicemail message from Mr. Grens inquiring as to the reasons why it was pulled up, knowing it was quasi-judicial. I did not return the call and called staff and spoke of the rationale and the reasons why it was pulled up, and staff, assuming, made subsequent contact with Mr. Grens to inform him of what we were doing and why.
Fine, thank you.
That, and I work on Gaffin Road, so I see this all the time.
You're there
Like
all the time.
every day.
Right. Okay, thanks. I don't work on Gaffin Road, and I wasn't familiar with the property, so I decided to drive over and take a look at it, and I make that disclosure. And what I observed its location relative to Highway 22 and Cordon Road and the old McClay Road, and also the adjacent neighborhood and the location of the elementary school in that neighborhood. I had no contact with anyone while I was there and did not meet with anyone then or subsequently regarding the property. All right. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Brian Colborn, planner with the Community Development Department, and tonight I'll be presenting the staff report for the review of comprehensive plan change, zone change, partition, case number 12-08, located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Highway 22 and Cordon Road Northeast. At this time, I'd like to enter the staff report and its attachments into the case record. This case includes requests to change the comprehensive plan map designation from industrial to a mix of industrial, commercial, and multifamily residential, and a corresponding zone change from the property's current industrial park and industrial business campus zoning to industrial, commercial, and multifamily residential, as well as a consolidated partition case to divide a part of the property into 3 parcels. This slide shows the comprehensive plan map for the vicinity of the subject property, and also shows the location of the site at the northwest corner of Highway 22 and Cordon Road. The subject property was designated in the 1980s as industrial in anticipation of high technology manufacturing type uses. Although the site has remained designated industrial since that time, for nearly 30 years now, it's currently vacant land and is not developed for those purposes. This is the zoning map of the immediate vicinity of the site. The gray areas to the north and the east of the subject property are unincorporated Marion County. There is existing multifamily residential and abutting land abutting to the northwest of the site. And further to the west, you'll see there in the yellow color, the orange is multifamily residential apartments, that sort of thing. Further to the west, you'll see the yellow is single-family residential zoning that exists farther to the west and north. To the south and east, there is more industrially zoned land, and to the south across Highway 22 is the Mill Creek Corporate Center. As was already mentioned, the application includes a consolidated partition request to divide about half of the property into 3 parcels. The land to be divided is shown here as tax lot 100. The intent of the partition is to create a 10-acre parcel that would be zoned multifamily residential and developed as an apartment complex with approximately 199 units. And that's the orange 10-acre parcel that you see there. And then the remainder in pink would be the IC, proposed industrial commercial zoning. Now, during the Planning Commission proceedings, we did not receive comments from the neighborhood association that represents this particular property, which is the Southeast Mill Creek Community Association. However, we did receive testimony from the East Salem Suburban Neighborhood Association, which is a neighborhood association that represents unincorporated Marion County immediately to the north of the property, and they testified in favor. In addition, we received citizen testimony from one nearby resident who was in opposition to the proposal. In addition to that, the state agency that reviews local comprehensive plan changes such as this submitted comments regarding some procedural issues with the proposed change of the 10 acres of industrial to multifamily residential, as you can see there in the orange. Marion County also submitted comments. Marion County is not concerned about the zone change proposal, but expressed a concern about the access location with respect to a future interchange at Cordon Road and Highway 22. Now, this is a photo taken from about the center of the property near the intersection of Cordon and Gaffin, looking across the property to the northwest at the land that's proposed to be zoned multifamily residential. And you can see in the background of this photo the abutting property that's already zoned multifamily residential and developed with apartments. And then this next photo shows the land to the south of that that's proposed for the IC, industrial commercial zoning, on the site. Several zone changes from industrial business campus to industrial commercial have been approved in recent years, most notably in the area of Fairview Industrial Drive Southeast. The industrial business campus zone permits industrial uses such as manufacturing, but only limited retail uses. The Sanyo Solar development is an example of the sort of development envisioned in the industrial business campus zone. The industrial commercial zone, on the other hand, is very broad in the types of uses it allows, with an emphasis on a mixture of both heavy commercial and light manufacturing and warehousing. Excuse me. Because the industrial commercial zone allows such a broad range of commercial uses, including many types of retail, the city has taken the approach of conditionally approving those changes to industrial commercial by broadening the commercial office uses allowed, as shown on this slide, but yet retaining the industrial business campus development standards for a higher quality urban design. At the Planning Commission hearing, the applicant accepted this recommendation from staff, but requested a few additional retail uses be permitted. The Planning Commission stated that the site is best suited for support service commercial, serving the local residents, but also serving potentially employees of the Mill Creek Corporate Center developments to the south of this site. The Planning Commission approved the change to industrial commercial zoning without any additional use or development limitations. By removing staff's recommended use and development restrictions, the Planning Commission decision actually allows a wide range of government service uses on 35 acres of industrial commercial land. If a government agency were to locate at this site, for example, the land would potentially become exempt from property taxes and result in a loss of property tax revenue for the city. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council amend the Planning Commission's decision by adding condition 10, which prohibits government uses at the site, but otherwise leaves the Planning Commission's decision intact. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. And do we have people signed up for this hearing? Oh, yes, we do. Right here. All right, thank you. We have two people signed up, Mark Granz and then Bill Berman. And Mr. Grenz, do you represent the applicant?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Okay, so you have 15 minutes.
Thank
Is that
you.
right? No, wait a moment.
It's not 15.
Not 15.
I believe it is 10.
10 minutes. All right, welcome.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Mark Grenz, and I'm with Multi-Tech Engineering. Our office is at 1155 13th
Mr. Grenz,
Street.
can you please speak up right into the microphone?
Yes, ma'am.
That's great, thank you.
Our office is at 1155 13th Street Southeast here in Salem, and we represent the applicants in these applications that are here before you this evening. You were passed out a couple simple drawings, and I'll talk about those a little bit as I get into my presentation here. You know, as staff indicated to you, this is an application that was made to rezone about 35 acres of IBC and IP property to IC, along with 10 acres to RM2. Now, you've heard me make presentation before relative to the position that the city's in with regards to its land inventories. And the city of Salem is long on general industrial property. You're long by over 300 acres in Salem. You are short on general commercial in Salem. You are short by approximately 600 acres of general commercial in town. So those are two things. So the change that we've asked for to change the properties, the portions of the site to 35 acres to IC was with the intent that would provide an opportunity for a more variety type of industrial/commercial uses on this site, and that would help fill some of the deficiencies that the city has relative to its general commercial in this area. In addition, you know, this property was, as staff indicated, in the late 1980s or early 1900s, this property was zoned industrial. That's part of Project 90. There's probably not very many of you that are familiar with Project 90. But anyway, Project 90 was a study and that was undertaken in order to create more industrial properties and to provide a way to service it in order to make sure that the city had an ample amount of industrial land. Of course, since then, you've added the Mill Creek Corporate Center to your inventory, which has boosted the amount of industrial land that you have by quite a bit. So then, In addition, you know, the city of Salem is the most recent housing, economic housing analysis availability that the city did, although not yet adopted, supports the fact that the city is short of over 200 acres of multifamily zone land in town. And in fact, we have been unable to find any significant pieces of multifamily zone land in the south part of town that's available that can be acquired for multifamily projects today. And you've heard me talk about that in a prior project. You know, there's been 2 other applications that have ended up before the city relative to trying to create multifamily housing in town. One, not done by us, but was over off of south side of Mission Street in the commercial area where multifamily housing was asked for there, that the council just determined that wasn't the appropriate place. And then, of course, the property that was before you just a few months ago on South Liberty, where we had asked for the creation of some multifamily zone land in the residential zone. Again, another zone that you have a large surplus of property, and council determined that that wasn't appropriate either. So we're now out in the industrial area where, if you look at those maps that I provided to you, the first one, which is just a copy of your zoning map where I've added some enhancements to it, you can see that the proposal here is to locate some multifamily that's adjacent to some other multifamily that's already developed in here, with the goal being to create some additional housing to meet the housing shortage for multifamily that exists in town, as well as to provide some multifamily living environments that would be supporting to the industrial and economic jobs creation that you're trying to do in the Mill Creek Corporate Center, and that, so that we have some housing that would be complementary to that. The property is burdened by some issues that make true industrial development a little bit hard. We have a large wetlands riparian corridor along a waterway there that breaks the property up quite a bit. That does 2 things. It makes large parcel development for industrial type uses difficult, but it was not be a hamper to the IC type developments. In addition, it provides some additional buffer for the residential part away from the proposed industrial uses. So we think that's complementary to the proposed applications that we have before you. So we think that the economic model that you have for this area should include more multifamily housing, as well as the industrial commercial type developments, to be supportive of the industrial activities that you're trying to do in the Mill Creek Corporate Center. Today, for the residents in this area to get services, they have to go to Lancaster and go down Lancaster in order to provide those commercial services. The hopes would be that some of those can be provided in this particular setting and help aid that, and may ultimately facilitate the bringing of the interchange to the Cordon Highway 22 area if there's perceived enough need for that access to be there. We had a pretty good support for this project, as opposed to some of the other projects that I might have brought for you, where I only had one opponent, and that person lived in Marion County. He was concerned about traffic, and staff and our office attempted to deal with the traffic issue. And in fact, this project is living with a trip cap, so that there's no increase in traffic impacts to the surrounding area from the development activities that take place. This is the same as it would be if it was being developed in the current zoning that's there. And then the Marion County, the Neighborhood Association in Marion County, the East Salem Suburban Neighborhood Association came out in support. In fact, came to the Planning Commission meeting and testified in support of this application for both the zone change to IC, as well as for the change in the addition of multifamily. So that was kind of different for me lately. I haven't had that kind of support lately for these types of projects. So we believe that what we proposed here makes good sense. I realize that it does take some industrial land away from the city, but this property has been industrial for a long time. It can't compete with the Mill Creek Corporate Center. It hasn't been able to compete with the Fairview Industrial Park because it doesn't have the opportunity for the same opportunities and incentives that the city has provided to those two areas in order for them to be developed. So this property has struggled. So we think that making the changes that's proposed here takes us away from competing with Mill Creek Corporate Center, puts us in an environment where we can be more complementary to it, and that we can provide a way to enhance that area and provide services, take some pressure off of Lancaster, and help meet the needs there. The maps that I provided to you also shows the extension necessary of Gaffin Road to service this property. Remember, this property is tucked in against the interchange, the overcrossing from Corden, so its access points are limited, so staff has indicated that the Gaffin Road extension onto the site is the only real viable way to get access back out to Corden Road. This property will ultimately, through its conditions, have a connection to Old Maclay Road so that traffic can get back into to the city that way as well. But there's not a lot to do, so the road also cuts the property up even more. So the issues that were brought up with traffic were pretty simple. Staff, our traffic consultant, both agreed that this was a logical extension. There will be a traffic signal ultimately constructed in this intersection that will facilitate traffic movement, and staff doesn't believe that, at least they've related to me and they did at the Planning Commission, that they don't believe it's going to be disruptive to traffic flow on Corden Road over and above that which would be expected as development continues. So with that, I think I'm ready to answer any questions you might have. See, I beat the 10 minutes. So.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Dickey, and then Councillor Nanke.
Thanks. I'll ask you, I think you probably can answer this question. If not, I'll save it for staff. Just looking at the map that you provided and the map staff has, I'm trying to kind of wrap my brain around where the access points currently are for this property, especially when it's divided into 3 lots. Will there be any new roads constructed for it, or it just uses what's already there? Can you just kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, if you look at this particular drawing here, you'll notice we showed the new extension of Gaffin Road that we'll build. That's that there.
That's the new part, okay.
So we'll be coming off opposite of the existing intersection where Gaffin Road comes onto Corden. There'll be a signal there that gets extended in, and that's the primary access for the commercial and industrial uses to get back out to Corden to circulate around and get ultimately to the freeway and others. Then there'll be, not yet noted here, but when this piece of property develops, staff, one of the conditions requires that we construct an access from Gaffin Road back out to Old Maclay Road in this general area. So that means that then traffic won't have to go out on the Corden to come back to get to Maclay to go back into town that way. So we'll have that opportunity to do it that way.
Can I follow up? So, just so I kind of understand this, and then the residential that's already behind the property, or looking that they showed us in the picture, that would be to the north of the property, I guess. Will there be access to that, or will all come to the south?
There won't be a vehicular access to that, although one of the conditions in here requires us to obtain pedestrian access from this property to the north to get to the street and walkway system so that the kids can get to the school, which is just a little bit of ways from there to the west. So, but there's no direct vehicular connection between that. That property takes its access back out to Maclay Road and to 49th that way.
All right, thanks.
All right, Councillor Nanke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming down, Mr. Grants. There was concerns I had. I don't pull up items lightly because I know there's an expense to property owners as well, so I appreciate your patience while we get some questions answered. There was a statement you made on the onset that we were heavy in industrial by so many acres, and I missed the actual number.
Yeah, it's in the regional economic opportunities analysis that was done. Although that's a study that's not been officially adopted by council,
right.
But it was done.
Right.
That particular document states that the city of Salem, or the Salem area in general, which would be Salem, Kaiser, and Turner, has a surplus of about 360 acres of general industrial. And by looking at the table that was provided for how that as allocated against the communities, it came down to Salem's share that was at least 300 acres. So you have a surplus of over 300 acres of general industrial land over what the expected needs are for the community in your planning period.
Okay, thank you. And you had just moments ago stated that there would be a connection then to the school?
That's correct.
There was also concern by the school district on potential uses abutting their property?
Well, the school property is bordered on the very, on what would be the southeastern edge of their site with what is currently IP property that would become IC property. But then as staff has indicated, what they did was they retained the IBC development standards that would play out there so that that creates some additional buffers and setbacks that was intended to help mitigate what could be built out against the property boundaries. And I think that will probably satisfy the concerns of the school district in that area. Given that we don't have any particular uses proposed out in there, we just know that industrial park zone isn't a successful zone these days. It's kind of like IBC. The uses that can go there just don't seem to be compatible with this particular area out there.
Okay. I noticed that staff had added in a condition 10 regarding potentially non-tax producing governmental type entities. You're fine with that?
Yeah, well, when at the Planning Commission, what we had no objection to that. We understand that, and in fact have no desire to locate government uses on this site today. We were at that point in time, we were just asking for a little bit more liberal set of uses for the IC. You know, and the Planning Commission seemed to side with our concerns, because those of you, Councilor Bennett and a few others that sit on the UDC committee have, as I do, have heard the frustrations that have been expressed about the IBC zone in of itself and how that zone just doesn't seem to fit. As a matter of fact, there's an awful lot of comp plan zone changes away from that. And so then the concern was, if we're just going to do a zone change from IBC to IC, but we're going to essentially make it a hybrid IC-IBC zone, we weren't accomplishing all that we wanted to do. So recognizing that staff's goals with retaining the development criteria of the IBC was okay with us, but that we were asking for some additional uses. So that's how we got there. But we are, the roundabout way is we're okay with adding condition 10.
Okay.
Great. Were there other counselors with questions? Counselor Tesler.
Thanks for coming down. I can appreciate your opening comments about locating multifamily. We have had somewhat of a problem getting sort of the right site, the right developer, and the right ideas. So once we get all three legs to the stool, I think we'll have something we can sit on and use. But until then, we await. I encourage you to be creative in your future endeavors in that matter. One thing I wanted to comment on is that, you know, I agree with you in some respects that IBC is not working in some areas, but there's a reason why lands were zoned that. And I don't necessarily think that pounding a square peg in the round hole of residential is going to solve those issues on these properties. I'm also concerned, again, about the multifamily aspect of this property, because we really want to get away from areas that are just total swaths of multifamily. We want to mix that up and combine it with other types of residential. I realize the profit margin probably isn't what it should be, but we would encourage people to think out of the box on multifamily development, especially considering the heavy concentration of multifamily in that area. The other concern I have is that this property, by the way, this person with the marker did a really good job of coloring in this map. That's something I would have my son do prior to the meeting. So anyway, I wanted to comment on the West Middle Fork Little Pudding River, which is kind of in beat up condition, but does flow through this property. And you have included this map, which is the floodway. And considering that further on this agenda tonight, we're going to talk about our draft floodway management plan, I think it's appropriate to kind of talk about your plans for what are you going to do as far as riparian area, and considering that this the fork of this river does flow through your property. It seems like you have this illustrated to show us that you might be providing some type of buffer or protection here. It looks like that's the case. I just wondered, on this map, my cohorts, and the red pieces of property, there's again another branch up in here, and I just wondered what your plans are there. Do you plan a setback? Do you plan some riparian area enhancement? What are your plans?
Well, the area that I've outlined on the map, and this map that's blue, is the limits of a combination of wetland and riparian corridor that's there. So it's not floodway. One of the conditions that is imposed upon this application by staff is that we have to do a study of this particular fork of the creek in order to be able to establish the floodway, floodplain, and the limits of flooding that would occur on here. So at this point in time, there's no intentions to try to encroach into this blue area. It's fairly significant in size along there, and our intentions are to leave that in its place. The purpose was to say there's a fairly significant separation between the residential and the future IC uses there, so that we weren't trying to put those uses tight to each other. The fact that you're finding multifamily grouped together as it is here is somewhat incumbent upon the fact that we're trying to keep multifamily in positions where there's easy access to other uses such as schools, like there is in this area here. You know, albeit you may not have agreed with the proposal that we brought forth to you on South Liberty, that was an out-of-the-box approach to locate multifamily within a single-family residential area in a place that we thought we could do it. Well, I don't know how to approach these projects now without some better direction from council. If this application doesn't fit, I don't know what to do, because all I get is no. I don't get this would be a good place. I get no, not here. We don't think this is appropriate. And you won't see very many more of these applications come forward until there's some direction, because this process costs the development community, $30,000 to $50,000 to get here. And we start with a pre-application conference with staff, where in this particular case, as with others, staff has said, we can support you. We think this is a good idea. We go forward in this particular case and put forth the energy to get the UGA, to get to the Planning Commission, to get 100% support from the Planning Commission with support from the Neighborhood Association, only one opponent to get here, and with the potential of you saying, nah, not here either. It makes it almost impossible for the development community to figure out what to do. Okay. And I know that's not maybe what's happening here, but that's what's happening. And I don't know how to do it. Now, if you want design standards that are going to give you a different kind of residential, of multifamily use, then change the standards. But don't don't shoot the developers down because they're trying to get here to meet a need that's clearly here. That's not the way to do this. But developers will not, and outside developers and people looking to come to Salem to do stuff aren't going to come here if there's not going to be some reasonable expectation that goals can be achieved if they have the support from staff, and staff says, hey, we think this is a good idea.
Councilor Tessler, did you have a subsequent
Yes, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying to you. I'm not telling you no. I'm just saying that we need to be a little more creative than we have in the past. And, you know, the number one reason people don't come here is because they don't see anything different. And, you know, I just, that's what we need to do. I'm not telling you no. And I think that your comments are well represented. As a matter of fact, I'm working on addressing that very issue that you just brought up. Thank you for that beautiful segue into my idea. But, you know, this is a problem, and we will be working on it. Okay, and you will probably be involved, so don't say no when I call you. So, you know, I mean, there you have it. So,
I haven't said
I
no
mean,
to a single
did you just
committee.
volunteer? Yes, you did. So, I mean, this.
I haven't said no yet.
And I understand the frustrations, but understand that we also, as a community, need to start thinking about how we site these projects. And, you know, the whole area around this project is an industrial site. I kind of, that would be lighted at night. It would be probably noisy. I'm kind of thinking about quality of life. You know, I don't know. I mean, maybe for some people that's not a problem. But, I mean, we need to kind of think about what kind of opportunities are we providing people to live in our city. And where are we going to make those opportunities? Everybody has the right to live in a decent place.
Correct.
Okay? That's quiet at night, that doesn't have big semis rolling by their front door or Krieg lighting shining in their window all night. I'm just saying that to you. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying this is the things that we have to think about as a council and as a city and as a development community. That's all.
And I agree with that. And I think that the development community does not object to refining standards or developing new standards that are achievable, that provides a different kind of product or opportunities for different kinds of product. I don't think that, but today you just have the development community trying to meet a need and trying to do it in a tough economic climate that we're coming out of. And they're trying to do it as best they can. Salem needs development. That's clearly, whether it's this type or whether it's industrial or other commercial type, they need development, because that's the only way Salem's going to get a tax base back up, because it's not going to happen because property values are going to skyrocket like they did in the early 2000s. I'd love that if that happened in my world, but that's not going to happen. So the only way to do that is to get development. Development will bring people will bring need for services, services will bring industry, and industry will bring development. And that's the cycle that we got to get into. This is the need today. I appreciate your comments, and I do believe that development will respond to your desires for different product or different type of product if there's a way to get there.
Okay, we're going to do Councillor Bennett, and then myself, then Councillor Nanke, and then Councillor Dickey.
Well, I hate to pull us back from the heights here of philosophical discussion, but I'd really like to talk about your development here. I'm really curious about a couple of things. Does this Gaffin Road thing, does that dead end at this point?
That map, all that map shows today is it extending. That map didn't go all the way.
Shows it stopping on this one too, and I just wondered if that's.
That's just because it's
okay. I just wondered what
it was pictorial and nature, not specific. Because ultimately, what will happen is that, and if I do this right, this will work. Ultimately, what will happen is there's two streets that come out of this residential area that staff will look to be connected in here in some fashion. Okay. And so, albeit that's residential, so the type of connection and how that occurs will be subject to the development at the time. But then you'll have street connections coming through here, coming out to Gaffin. You'll have another street that goes out here that ties into Old McClay, that ties into McClay Road. So you'll have relatively good traffic circulation in the
Yeah.
area when it's done.
Could you kind of, now that you got your light out, I just wanted to, you had described quickly how the kids would get to that school. Can you do that with the light? Because I'm trying to look for the connections and I couldn't see them.
Today, the school is here, so what would
Right.
happen is children, we're exploring a walkway right here. There's a
Okay.
sanitary sewer easement right there, so we'd go out here to Seattle Slough that comes through, that goes into this residential area, and then you just jog over and you come right out here to, I forget the name of that street, and then you get right there to the elementary school. So it's a pretty short,
Is
easy
it?
trek through residential areas on sidewalks. I only have to get from here to there, and I got sidewalk all the way.
Ah, okay. So there's sidewalks through
Yep.
that whole area?
Those already exist. The school was built when this area was developed here.
Yeah.
If you recall, and then this has existed for a long time. So the sidewalks are all there. All I have to do is make that one connection from there, and I got it all the way.
In our packet on this thing, Marion County Public Works expressed a lot of concern about access points onto Cordon Road. Does your transportation plan then respond to that? You've taken care of their issues?
Councilor Bennett, we believe so. It's clear that Gaffin Road is the connection point. Staff has told us that from the beginning, that there would be a connection there, there'll be a signal there. That comes in and provides the backbone for the kind of traffic that would need to get out.
But they were talking about, it seemed like, commercial access, because that's how they talk about it anyway,
We have
off
no
of
other
Cordon Road.
No other access to Cordon Road is proposed other than Gaffin.
That one spot.
That's the
Okay.
only place, and then,
Okay.
like I said, with the potential connections here and the connection back out to Old McClay and here, we don't perceive that there's going to be any major difficulties or impacts on Cordon Road. That wouldn't occur in the normal course of development activity. We met with your transportation staff and talked about that to make sure that we identified it. We're far enough away from any potential signals or stuff that occur here, should there ever be an interchange here. We're about 1,400 feet or 1,000 feet to Gaffin Road, so you have plenty of time for the interface between signals to take place. Your traffic, again, we confirmed that with your traffic department. We didn't want to end up in a situation where there was going to be something come at us that we weren't aware of. Our traffic consultant, who's Dick Wolk with ATEP, worked with Tony Martin and attempted to work to address Marion County's concerns, and I think they've been done.
Okay, I just wanted, and then just finally, I guess, I want to just really question and reject your comments regarding development opportunities here based on one or two turndowns. I know how disappointing that must be, but I ain't buying the sob story. So this looks pretty good. But I
used to
don't think it's
rejections,
fair
Councilor
to,
Bennett,
I
so.
think, Mr. Grenz, I listened for quite a while to you, and I don't think it's fair to generalize as broadly as you did. And I think we can all kind of move forward. Every once in a while, you lose one. Okay?
Agreed.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Grenz, you've answered a couple of my questions in answering Councilor Bennett's questions. One was how the children were going to be getting to the school, and the other had to do with the other roadways. My questions and comments are going to be about the relationship between the industrial part and the residential part. And I'll make a caveat that having had the opportunity to drive through the neighborhoods and to drive through the apartment complex that is there, I was pleasantly surprised by the appearance and the upkeep and the general nature of that entire neighborhood. And I've been, I think, a supporter of apartments, because I know that we definitely need apartment complexes. Some I've not supported, but I think this environment could be a very good environment for an apartment complex because of the way it's adjacent to a well-kept apartment complex and a well-kept neighborhood with houses that range from new homes modest new homes to homes that have been in that area for probably 50 years. And yet the general level of upkeep was encouraging to me. And so I think that that will set a good precedence or a guidance perhaps for you or for those people who will be designing and developing the apartments. What kinds of buffers would you envision between the industrial, commercial activities and the residential activities?
With respect to the site, and I know both directions here, but the entrance off of the road creates a certain amount of buffer from that, because if you notice how that is, the road's going to come up here and runs right along there, so we create the roadway creates some buffer. We have our entrance coming in, and as you come into this site, likely what will happen, there'll be the office, recreational facility will be located there, so that the residents themselves will be set back from that activity. We have the riparian area pointed to you here that's pretty wide, and we're planning some extra buffering and screening along here for that area. And then, of course, we're up against a nice multifamily project that you talked about there. The current developer of the property, should we be successful here, is a long-time apartment developer in town. Has been very successful, does a very good job in setting their projects up, doesn't overcrowd them with units, and does a good job of setting them up so that they're well maintained. So you should see this project to be equal to that Mr. McNall has on the other side that you toured.
Okay. And related to that, I've been a strong opponent of converting industrial properties for office use. But in this particular case, and having driven out there and having seen how the rest of the area is developed, I wouldn't particularly find fault with that as a plan with this particular piece of property, in that the site is so close to the Cordon Road and Highway 22, and it would seem like a logical site for a mix of uses on that property. And
we agree with you.
And that's what you're planning, it sounds like, some light industrial and office, perhaps?
That's correct.
Some light retail, or?
Yeah, we would see a concentration more likely of retail, more commercial retail close to the intersection, where, and then diverge those uses as you go back with light industrial, still probably see some industrial campus type development with the IBC standards, but in a little bit more free-flowing type development where there's more opportunities than just the IBC zone itself.
Does this, and maybe this is a question for staff, but would this be a site for a grocery store? Would that be allowed as a retail use in that site? It would, okay,
Yes.
good. Because it is rather a grocery oasis out there for people. That means that they have to drive quite a distance to buy groceries.
Yeah, we did see the fact that that in the long term, this property could take some pressure off of the Lancaster Drive, that area that's kind of, that's quite difficult sometimes to get through in order to get services, goods, that kind of stuff.
Exactly, okay. And I'll say the last thing is I'm a strong supporter of the concept of restricting government office uses in that space, so as to have the property returning on the tax rolls what we so badly need in this community, and that's a higher tax base.
Yep.
So that's good. All right, thank you. Next, I believe Councillor Nanke and then Councillor Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, and that answered a lot of my questions in and out here again as well. In regards to the reason you're actually here tonight, I'd say you can probably blame staff for having a work session, like directly before this, talking about conversion of industrial lands and a desire to change our philosophy on that. So I'll be asking a couple questions on that. Before that, looking at this, I thought it was a wonderful buffering to an industrial zone. Having been involved with the Fairview Industrial Park, residential, then you need something in between. Multifamily is good in that respect, into some kind of a commercial light industrial before you hit heavy industrial, as far as just sound mitigation as well as intensity of use. So those were my initial thoughts when I saw this for the first time. The main reason, and I'll be asking staff when we come to questions them, is in regards to conversion of industrial.
Councillor Dickey.
Thank you. Just one more question about access. I'm wondering where transit access, the closest transit access is to this property, and that especially that would be to the residential area, the apartments?
I'm afraid that I don't know that answer. Maybe staff can answer that for you. I don't know where transit is.
I don't have any way to get people out there.
Yes.
Line 16, Chariot's Line 16 runs along Maclay Road.
Okay, so if there's Chariots along Maclay Road, how would, if in an apartment, how would someone get to it?
Well, if that's the case, then we would have the walkway that would take us, initially we'd have the walkway from the multifamily that would go out here, and then you can go right through here to the transit system on Maclay. Ultimately, when this piece of property develops, there'll be a roadway, and there'll be, along with that, will be pedestrian access out to Maclay Road in this general area. So there'll be two ways that they can get there ultimately.
And do you know the approximate distance?
In terms of from this point, if you had to walk out there, I'm going to tell you, you're walking about 1,400 to 1,600 feet if you went this direction to get out there, or this direction to get out there. That's approximate, but I think that's about right.
Okay.
All right, are there further questions of Mr. Grins? All right, thank you very much. Our next person to testify is Bill Berman. And Mr. Berman, you would have 3 minutes. And at the end of 2, the amber light will come on, and when the red light comes on, your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to everybody. I just want to put a face to the project. You know, we're local folks. We grew up here. We raised our kids here. They're educated here, go to school here. They're back here working here. We like Salem. We like to see good things in Salem. You know, we're not from out of town. Slam, make a quick buck, and away we go. That's not who we are. You know, we want to participate in quality development. We've been struggling with this piece of property for 15, 16 years now. What do you do with it? You know, how do we make it happen? Size issues under IBC, you know, people who fit that zoning, we're not big enough. You know, by the time you get access, wetlands, and, you know, issues and whatever in there, it just doesn't work for that. We finally came up with this plan and brought together the right kind of people that all signed up and brought it together, and, you know, it just fit. You know, so we've got the right people, you know, in place with the funding in place, private funding, not public funding, ready to go tomorrow. And I feel like this is a win-win project, you know, for the residents, for the city, and for the developers. For the neighborhoods, you know, what we're providing now is a relief of pressure to Lancaster with this zoning, and we get some sort of services involved there. People don't have to go out and, you know, fight out on the traffic in South Lancaster. You know, maybe they can pick up some groceries, they can get that quart of milk, they can, you know, do whatever out there. You know, so I think that enhances that living area out there. This plan precludes heavy industrial. Take a look at IBC. Are you going to slap that in right next to the apartments? Staff's going to go, no, we don't care what it's zoned like. The impact is too great. You know, we're going to get tied up with that. City of Salem benefits, you know, we're not going to be competing with Mill Creek. We're going to increase the tax base out here for you. We're not using public money. Shovel-ready project. Multi-use high-density project. where people don't have to travel a long ways. Again, relieving pressure on Lancaster, enhancing Mill Creek because now they have services available, and again, relieving pressure on Lancaster. Mill Creek development, all those employees and people work there don't have to go to Lancaster. We see this as a terrific benefit. And finally, from the developer's perspective, as I'm running out of time here, under IBC, with Mill Creek put in there, you put me in a position of competing against city and state. I'm here to tell you it's impossible. All right. I don't have enhancement zones. I can't bring free utilities. I can't do wetland studies and have ready-to-go developments out there. I don't have it, let alone that can I sell, land for below market cost.
Mr. Berman, can
Thank
you
you.
wrap up?
Got it.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Berman? All right. Thank you very much. Was there anyone else who wanted to testify and had not signed up? All right. We will close the public hearing. I'm sorry? Oh, questions of staff, then we will close the public hearing. I really have a lot of trouble with this, don't I? Well, give me time. I'm sure it's a lot harder than I make it look, but
Nothing like a little transparency.
All right, staff, again, please return.
You're going to what?
And do we have questions for staff?
Oh, yes, we do.
Counselor Nanke, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple quick ones. Non-enterprise zone, no benefits to any industry that would.
There's no enterprise
develop
zone there.
It's an industrial, this isn't an, it's not, I'm sorry, it's not.
The Old McClay Road, we spoke previous to this, that we would vacate that one day. The connection would be at its junction then to current McClay Road, and we would still vacate it sometime?
Yeah, Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director, that'd be about right. It's funny, in answer to the county's question, we would get rid of Old McClay and create that connection at Gaffin Road. So, yeah, so it'd be somewhere around where that curve takes place. And then we would certainly close that connection, perhaps vacate it, and
okay, give
that other property owner a better opportunity.
In light with that, because I know the county was concerned, and I definitely am as well, knowing that the more times you stop traffic, the longer it takes for it to come back up to speed and the more congestion it causes behind it. If in fact we get a connection between Gordon and 22, and there's two lights there, another short one at Gaffin, another short one at McClay, the staff report spoke to potential timing to essentially allow more of a continuous stream through that while it cycled,
right,
and not stop at each one.
Right.
How would you do that in regards to traffic going opposite ways? Would it shift at one time of a day or another? Do we know what the loading is on that? Is it peak one direction?
It will just see how traffic plays out when that time comes. I mean, we run, on average, a half a dozen signal timing plans a day on all of our signal system, and it just depends on how traffic flows so that we can progress it. What would probably happen out here is if we started getting significant traffic on Cordon or we had an interchange, is Cordon would get more green. The way that Commercial Street gets more green, we get complaints all the time. Why do I have to wait so long on the side street? Well, because Commercial Street is carrying 40,000 cars and they get the bulk of the green. So it'd be the same thing here. Just
a couple more questions, if I may, so we have 100% control of light timing on that, on the entirety of Cordon through that whole area. Excellent. The connection for bike ped, non-vehicular, to the property to the northwest, is that a requirement?
I believe it is.
It was something that the school district asked for, and we tied it to the criteria for the partitioning, that we have necessary pedestrian as well as vehicle connectivity to all surrounding properties.
So we do have
And so it's a requirement, I'm sorry, it's a requirement, yes, it's a condition of approval on this decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, what will the frontage requirements be along Corden Road? Bike lane, any sidewalks? You're going to run into the overpass where there's not a lot of anything? Or would that take place at actual development?
There was a UGA decision that speaks to that, but all that would be determined specifically at time of development, at time of site plan review.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, industrial.
I'll take that one.
Thank you.
Vicki Harden-Woods, Community Development Director. I know we've had a lot of discussions about industrial land supply, and I kind of want to set the record straight as best as I can. There was a regional economic opportunities analysis that was generated about a year ago, maybe a little less now, and that project identified that there was an overabundance of general industrial kind of land and a shortage of commercial service office kind of land. That study was not adopted, so it's not something that you can rely on to develop findings, but the materials, the data that's in it, the information that's in it is legitimate information. And it does indicate to us that we don't have a shortage of industrial land supply. Now, you've had some work sessions related to economic development that has to do with how those lands are used and what kind of buildings and what sort of infrastructure are available on those lands. And I think there's probably some work that needs to be done on, do we have an adequate supply of buildings ready to be when somebody knocks on our door to do a certain thing? Is that available and ready? And I think the answer to that is probably not, because we don't have a lot of spec development that's ready for somebody who's right here. But the actual industrial land supply, the studies that we have don't show that there's a shortage. It actually shows that there's an overabundance. And that's what you heard the applicant referring to. And we also have looked at that data, and that's one of the reasons you see us making recommendations that it's okay to make some of these tweaks, because there's a need in the other direction. And so I just want to be clear about where the problems are when it comes to our land supply and where developers can find land to do good job generating development in the community.
Okay. And kind of following up on that, knowing what potential benefits are available to someone who would choose to utilize this piece of property, and knowing that there isn't really a lot currently, and most of our other industrial lands have some kind of an incentive that could be offered to a developer. It does form somewhat of a bridge across 22 between the Mill Creek Corporate Center and the Renewable Energy and Technology Center, with whatever may be developed down the line. Knowing that staff had already put forth recommendations on this piece of property prior to our work session and prior to kind of rethinking, is it staff's recommendation to actually allow this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
This was the right thing to do, regardless of what happened at that work session. That work session was focused on buildings and land supply, building supply rather than land supply. If I may, I'd also like to just point out one thing to Councilor Tesler. You had a question about how that creek might be protected, and I wanted to point out to you that there is a condition in the Planning Commission's decision and what it requires. So I want to make sure you understand what the condition requires. That there be a study done, as the developer said, to determine the 100-year water surface elevations and the floodway boundary, and then dedicate a drainage easement of a width that is the greatest of the following: the 100-year floodway, 15 feet from waterway center line, or 10 feet from top of recognizable bank. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask, Ms. Woods, where you were reading from, so I can note that?
In the report that you received, you had a report that you got that is dated February 25th, and it says 4B at the top. That report is about 2 pages long, and then there's a map. And then attached to that is the Planning Commission decision. And that Planning Commission decision, the Planning Commission actually, the staff recommended 9 separate conditions to the Planning Commission. So it looks like, the Planning Commission decision looks like this. So it says notice of decision along the side. It's right at the front of the materials that you received.
That's definitely 120.
I know it is, and I
Right,
apologize. It's attachment C. And those conditions are numbered on that Planning Commission decision, numbers 1 through 9. And they actually eliminated condition number 3.
Thanks.
And condition number 4. So all the other conditions stand, and I think Brian is about to discuss with you that condition number 4, because the issue came up about what development standards apply here, and the Planning Commission actually eliminated one of those development standards. And so I think Brian can speak to you about that and clarify that for you.
Yeah, during my presentation, I had mentioned that staff had taken the approach that we typically have taken in these sorts of industrial business campus to industrial commercial changes, where we include an attached list of uses, but also we reference development standards from the industrial business campus, which are of a higher standard of development, more landscaping, screening for loading areas, that sort of thing. In this particular case, we included that same reference to the development standards of the industrial business campus zoning. In a little bit of a different way, we used the draft Unified Development Code version of that, but it achieves the same purpose because those are the same standards, just in an updated format. And the Planning Commission struck both the use condition, condition 3, and condition 4. And I believe that Mr. Gren's comments earlier did seem to indicate that the intent was still to develop that IC land beyond the retail, at least, as an industrial campus type development with increased landscaping. So if we want to ensure that that takes place, one way to do that would be to put condition 4 back in this decision.
One of the things that makes industrial business campus zoning different than other industrial zones is it's intended to be a campus, and it has the highest standard of any of our industrial zones when it comes to landscaping and setbacks from other properties. So by retaining that, you get more buffering for the multifamily land than you would without it. The Planning Commission, however, eliminated that condition.
All right. Councillor Nanki, did that satisfy your questions?
I think I'm good.
Okay, then Councillor Benars, then Clausen, then Clem.
Thank you.
And then Dickey.
Thank you. Here's my question. I've kind of looked at the zones, and I know that there are at least that I can count 5 different kinds of industrial lands that we have zoned, or zonings that we have here in the city.
Yeah.
My question basically stems from I'm struggling a lot with the IBC zone, and you know I've seen this kind of thing come up before. Hey, it's in a zone that's kind of out of date. It needs to be updated tremendously to fit today's market, where the world is headed today. Anywhere that we're headed down that? That's
Yes.
my first question. Are we headed down that road?
Yes, we are headed down that road, and that's going to be coming to the council for consideration here in the very near future. And the road, the path we're on in regard to that, and the councilors who sit on our Unified Development Code Committee are familiar with this. We have proposed, as part of updating our zoning code, that we change the industrial business campus zone, because we have had so many problems in trying to administer it. It creates problems from the perspective that it's very difficult to, the rules that are in it are very difficult to track and apply and actually make happen. And from a market perspective, we've had multiple requests to change the uses that are allowed there. So we have a proposal on the table that'll be going to the Planning Commission within a month or two that says, and you'll be having an update on this yourself in a couple of months, that says that we want to expand the uses that are permitted. So the answer to your question is yes, we are trying to look at that zone and fix it so that it works better. In this case, I'm not sure it's the best zone here anyway, even in its new fixed format.
Well, first, would you say if we want to bring businesses to this community, we've had these conversations about economic development. This is one of those zones that needs to be looked at. Second, I would say, you're right, I'm trying to figure out how a business campus, and I think of Fairview Industrial area is business campus. You got a large street, you got a lot of area. What I've basically seen here, this is roughly, I don't know, 500 by 800 square rectangle. It's not terribly large to be zoned that way, so I'm not quite sure why it ever ended up that way. I'm kind of welcoming a change in that area, and I think it's a needed one.
This whole area was the subject of a study back in the 80s and the 90s, and it was targeted as an industrial development area for the city. And there was money invested in it, and there was plans to put infrastructure in, and none of that came to be over time. And so I think what we have are some remnants out here. The Gaffin Road parcels are a piece of that, but this was another piece.
Well, I applaud the change on the IBC, or in the IBC. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Clausen and then Councillor Clem.
I just had a follow-up question on Cordon Road. Cordon is a major arterial, is that correct?
It's designated a parkway, so it's higher, has a higher designation than a major arterial.
Thank you. So with this development, what conditions are put on as far as the improvement of Cordon Road along the property frontage? Or is that ours?
Well, that piece, the street is not ours.
Yeah.
The street is
The county's.
is the county's. There's great difficulty in requiring improvement on the frontage of Cordon and Kubler for a lot of properties. So that would remain to be seen. This may be one where we take a fee in lieu of frontage developments pending other improvements. So they'd obviously would improve the intersection at Gaffin, but it would remain to be seen what we do along the frontage piece itself. There'll be no other driveways.
And that would be, we would be, the county would take a fee in lieu? Is that their improvement
we would
to make?
take it and then we would apply it to a future project, whatever that project might be.
Okay, I'm just interested in, I want to make sure Cordon stays wide enough, you know, especially if we're getting more traffic on it out of this
Oh,
development.
yeah, well, there's plenty of right-of-way there, so we would, you know, whatever, if there's missing pieces of right-of-way, that would be part of the dedication process that would come.
Okay,
What
I
I'm
think that's
speak-
the critical thing, yeah.
Yeah, what I'm
It's the
speaking to is
right-of-way,
more what the improvement might be on the street itself.
which we just don't really know because there's not enough there yet.
Right, I mean, we may consider, you know, might there be a southbound right turn lane into Gaffin? You know, certainly would be left turn lanes on Cordon coming into Gaffin east or westbound. But beyond that, I just don't foresee a whole lot.
And those would come as the property develops and uses are put on the property would determine what happens, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right, as they come in for development approvals.
Thanks. So, but this would dedicate the right-of-way necessary to get the full width of. Well, that
Yes,
was a
we always
powerful
look for a full dedication along the frontage.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Clem and then Councillor Dickey.
My question's been answered.
All right. Councillor Dickey?
Thanks. I want to go back to the transit question that I asked earlier. I pulled up the route map for Chariots, and it looks to me like the route, you said Route 16, right? That's the closest that gets to it, and the closest that it actually gets to that property is the corner of Rickey and Maclay, so that's, and it kind of goes from Rickey to Pennsylvania, so that's what I see on here. Is there something closer?
I was taking that from the comments we received directly from Chariots, and I actually didn't check the distance it ended its line along Maclay, so the information you're looking at is probably more accurate than
Okay, so yeah, so Route 16, it looks like it serves it, but it's quite a distance away from a multifamily proposal. Okay, thank you.
You may have to get a hold of transit. Gets nowhere close to my workplace.
All right. Any further questions, Councillor Nan?
More if I, first question, will the applicant have an opportunity to speak again?
It's rebuttal, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that. And then question of staff on condition 4 and how it would apply to businesses inside, or is it in the entirety, which increases a single buffer or between potential businesses inside? How much of a hardship would condition 4 place on on the property in the respect of buildable land in regards to the landscaping requirements? Could you apply that specifically only to the abutment areas to residential?
I would not want to write a specific condition here that's different than every other piece of property to do that. So I think that I would recommend that if you want to apply those standards, you do it in a uniform way and just apply all of them. And it is both landscaping within and abutting the property. And I'm hoping Brian can give you the very specifics on that.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's a general landscaping requirement for any development site. So a site plan came in, the site gets parceled out eventually, and it's just the IC land we're talking about here. Right. There'd be a percentage that's greater than what would be required under our regular landscaping code, quite a bit more. There's also screening requirements for loading areas and for buildings. There's some additional setbacks at the interior property lines that would be landscape setbacks that go further in many cases than what our landscaping buffer yards. And then the other thing, it would be along, and this is where it really is greater, is along the frontage of right-of-way, wherever a street frontage is on a property. There's a greater setback in the neighborhood of...
It's intended to look park-like.
That would be along Corden Road, which
Yes.
Yeah, 20 to 40
isn't
feet.
the issue necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right, and as opposed to 6 to 10 feet landscape setback in our existing
An
code.
increase in what?
20 to 40 foot setback, depending on what kind of development you're adjacent to. For a building abutting a street, it'd be a 20-foot setback abutting an internal street, so one of the local streets inside the development. Under today's code for the landscaping standards that apply generally, it would only be a 6 to 10 foot landscape setback to that internal street. So that's just an example of the greater landscaping.
So internal was 6 to 10, and now it would go?
It would go up to 20. Yeah, between a building and an internal street.
They're designed to be park-like.
Yeah,
Right.
You know.
which, this...
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Councillor
Thanks.
Clem.
Yes, with regard to condition 4, Planning Commission did not move it forward with a couple of conditions, but condition 4 is the one that's been brought up. Any recollection of, I can see why staff put it in there, but why Planning Commission decided against it? Was there discussion?
Mm-hmm.
It was recommended and then they didn't adopt it, and we're trying to second guess it now.
It was part of the larger, the Planning Commission, the most clear direction they gave to us was with regards to the uses. They gave us the direction that they felt that this was more appropriate as a service commercial area. And then as part of that discussion about the uses and dropping condition 3, they said, and we should also essentially drop condition 4 because they go together. Condition 4 is a set of IBC standards, and condition 3 is a set of IBC uses. But there wasn't a real specific discussion about that went into condition 4 and why that was dropped.
And 3 would have really limited the uses, so by removing 3 and 4, we're sort of leaving it a lot more flexible in terms of the uses
Yes.
and the landscaping
Yes.
plan that would
Yes.
accompany. So you
Yes.
can't talk about condition 4 without talking about condition 3, and because they didn't want to constrict them under 3, they decided that 4 wasn't appropriate as well. Is that
They felt that way.
okay, got it.
All right, Councillor Clausen.
My question is answered.
Oh, just now, all right. All right, are there any further questions of staff? All right, seeing none, we will have rebuttal.
Go for the mallet.
Go for the mallet.
Keep me honest up here, okay.
And I've got to spend a lot of time in front of you tonight. I usually
Yes,
don't.
you have.
Usually I'm only getting a little bit of time here, but and I do want to go back just slightly here and just say that that you did see some of my frustrations over the processes that we've followed here, and I don't want you to misinterpret that. I know that council has goals in what you're trying to do, and I appreciate it, but it is a frustrating environment on the other side when you're trying to achieve goals. So, but I'm not asking for sympathy here. I'm just saying it is that way, and I'm used to being told no. I get told no a lot, in a lot of different places. That being said, we think that we're proposing a good use here, you know, so, and a good way to deal with a lot of the issues that Salem has, you know, a little more industrial than you might need, a little less commercial than you probably need, and certainly less multifamily than the town needs, so we're trying to do that. We think like Bill said, we think we brought together some good players that will give you a good quality project out here, not just a project. So that's there. We don't have an issue with the additional landscape standards. We didn't object to them. You know, I think they will be things that will play out as you go through the specific site design process. There may be situations where the uses that are proposed don't warrant those type of setbacks, in which case we can work with staff through the process that's available through design review in order to accommodate that. So I'm not as concerned about that. I know that we don't want huge landscape buffers. That takes away from the flexibility we're trying to get. But I do see that there are places where, as was pointed out, where those are necessary in order to protect the school and some other things that are there. So I think we can deal with them through the design review process and not be too concerned about them if council feels that's necessary. The Planning Commission did not. Of course, the Planning Commission, all of whom sat on the UDC committee, were trying to make clear that they didn't like the hybrid approach. You either have IBC, and if you don't like IBC, you go IC, and that's what the Planning Commission was trying to get across, I believe. So we didn't ask for condition 4 to be eliminated, but we certainly did ask for the right to have some additional uses brought into play. So if I can answer any other questions that you might have, I'd be happy to. I'm afraid to ask that, but.
Any further questions? All right, hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, the hearing is closed. All right, I believe,
You're just a little over anxious, Mayor.
well, you know, just like to keep things moving along. All right. Councillor Nanke, do you have a motion on this?
I do,
item?
Madam Mayor.
All right.
And that motion would be staff recommendation to amend the decision of the Planning Commission for comp plan zone change partition case 12-08 by adding condition 10 as identified on the front page of the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Nanke and seconded by Councillor Clausen.
Or Bennett, either one.
All right.
Or both.
Either one, or both. All right.
If I may speak
Is
to
there
that?
discussion? Yes.
Previous condition 4 from the Planning Commission hearing scares me to some extent. I'm hopeful that as staff goes through development plans as they come forward for site review and what have you, and embody the vision of that in those areas where it would have been appropriate. I would hate to push that over an entire zone and have it just waste space per se, depending on how the layout would be. And then look forward to the connection and those other pieces that'll come at the time of site review as well. So it has a lot of opportunity there. I'm looking forward to seeing something happen every day. I see a great big mud parking lot with, the nice thing, it's kind of like a farmer's market. I can buy strawberries, peaches.
Oh, really?
They're always sitting out in there, so. It'll be nice to not see the mud puddles, though.
All right, other comments, questions by staff, other observations? Councillor Tessler. And then Counselor Dickey.
So shockingly, I'm going to vote yes. And I think that, you know, I really do appreciate Mr. Berman, that's your name, right? I really do appreciate you coming down here tonight, and I really appreciate the fact that you're a local person. I mean, I think everybody that comes here, we got to give them equal cred, but I do appreciate the fact that you pointed that out, because that does make a difference, doesn't it? You know, especially when you raise your kids here and you know this area and you care about what happens to it. So I do appreciate you coming down and making those comments. I know this is frustrating. Thank you for bearing with us and going through the process. I thank you for your patience, and thank you for listening to me whine about multifamily, which I'm going to continue to do. But I do appreciate that. And as far as the planning documents, I'm sorry, I've been well trained by Randall Tosh, and whenever I see a planning report, I never look at it because I was afraid it's an ex-party contact. So I do apologize for not looking at the planning report. Thank you for pointing that out to me, Ms. Woods.
Counselor Dickey.
So I appreciate staff's very thorough explanation of this whole process. This has been good to have an idea of how this whole thing can be parceled out, and I do believe that it will be a quality project. But I do have to say I'm a little stunned that there's a plan here for a multifamily, and the discussion of how are we going to get these people to where they need to go via the bus hasn't even been taken into consideration. This is quite a distance from the closest bus stop, and so I guess the assumption is all of the people in the apartments will all have their own cars, which can be a challenge because you know, if you have 3 adults in an apartment, a lot of times you don't have enough parking spaces for that, for 3 cars, and so that is a huge concern for me. I'm very surprised that that hasn't been part of the discussion. This is pretty far out of the transit area. I mean, there's a bus kind of close by, but you're kind of getting on the edges there. Not to say that it can't work, but I would encourage you as you move forward with this to have some discussions with the transit district, have some thought about how these people are going to get where they need to go and where you're going to put all their cars if there isn't good pedestrian, bicycle, transit access.
All right, are there any further comments? All right, we'll call for the question. It's been moved by Counselor Nanke and seconded by Counselor Clausen to approve staff recommendation as he enumerated in his motion. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Go forth, make it pretty.
Yes.
Yep.
It's in our self-interest.
All right, we're going to move on now for special orders of business, and there was an item that was pulled from the consent calendar, 3.3C. Councillor Bennett, would you like to make a motion regarding that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move that a decision on the city attorney pay range be postponed until the city manager has completed her recruitment and returns to city council with a recommended pay range.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Bennett and seconded by Councillor Clem to adopt the motion just read by Councillor Bennett. Is there discussion? Councillor Bennett.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the city manager recommended that you begin the city attorney recruitment process with a negotiable salary depending on experience and qualifications. And she has said that when she finds that highly qualified applicant, she'll return to council with a recommendation then on a pay range.
All right, thank you. Is there further discussion or are there questions? All right, I would like to say I am going to support this motion because I definitely believe that what we need to do is to be able to recruit the very best, and that's a very particular field and a very particular profession, and I would like to see our city be as competitive as we possibly can. So I certainly support that motion. Any further comments? Councillor Tessler and then Councillor Nanki.
Yeah, I'm going to support you in your previous comment, and I am also going to comment that this position is a keystone of the management team of the city. We very much depend on this position, and we should take this position very seriously, although I don't know if we'll ever be able to replace Randall. But, you know, immeasurable millions will be spent. But anyway.
Please start the search.
So anyway, we'll cut the dirge. But just, you know, we really, really, really do need to take this position seriously, and we do need to get the best person we possibly can, because this person we have to ultimately trust with very serious decisions and advice, and we definitely don't want somebody who's taking it out of a gumball machine before council. So anyway, that's my comment on that.
Thank you very much, and I'll figure out what that means later. Councillor Nanki. Yeah, send me an email. Councillor Nanki.
Yeah, just in reading through the staff report, we spoke a couple of times in regards to the level of service we actually provide in the legal department. And I would hope that we would actually take a look at that again. I mean, we've spoken to that and the benefit to us in previous budget committees, but to really understand the entirety of what we provide as a community, that I think maybe a couple Oregon cities beyond us do, if that. That we should really look at that, understand how that may impact the qualifications for the individual that we're looking for, and whether or not that's a course that we would prefer to maintain, and how the finances revolve around that. If we were to not have that level of service, would it be a plus or a minus in our column, or a risk acceptance or aversion?
Right. It's something actually that Randall and I have talked to, and I'll tell you, I've worked in cities that have internal city attorney staff, external city attorney staff, some that you rely more on outside attorneys than inside attorneys. And I can tell you, as your city manager, I am very supportive of the system we have right now and the scope of the work we do. I rely on our legal staff, as our department heads do, probably every day. And it saves us a tremendous amount of money, because we have staff right here who work in that broad range of areas of legal areas. It makes it harder to replace our city attorney. But we always continue to look at that. But at this point, I would recommend that we continue with the same services we have.
And I've worked in both models, and I can say that I think that the internal counsel, legal counsel model for a city this size is really the only really viable model. It's a big beast with lots of moving parts, and to be able to effectively represent the city, you have to understand the way the parts interrelate and how sometimes they don't interrelate. And it's very difficult as outside counsel to get that sort of big picture view of the organization. And I've worked in both models. I've represented in my career now close to 20 municipal corporations. And so, you know, there are, from an attorney's perspective, sometimes it's nicer if you're outside counsel because you make more money. But if you're inside counsel, you have a much better understanding of the way the whole organization works.
Thank you. Councillor Clem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is discussion looks like it'll continue. I'd like to think that this motion allows the city manager to have still have a viable competitive range, and service model discussions notwithstanding. I believe that I'm hoping that our city attorney will stay on for quite some time until such time as the hiring. So hopefully that's on public record. But that this is your last official meeting presiding or as the parliamentarian as an employee. Is that correct?
No. Mr. Tosh has agreed to stay on and through the end of June.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you will be a city employee.
Under contract. After I retire, I can work 1,080 hours, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And still.
Well, this discussion in no way belies my absolute admiration and respect for your great work. work. And I hope that I'm sure we'll take the time to herald your great accomplishments for the city at the appropriate time. But please, this discussion, for anybody listening, has nothing to do with trying to replace the shoes of a great man who cares about this community. So thank you.
The shoes are kind of stinky, but thank you, Councilor Clem.
All right. Was there any further discussion on this? All right, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have no unfinished business, and I direct your attention to the list of information reports that are in your agenda packet. Are there any questions or comments regarding the information reports? No, then we'll move along to the ordinances for the first readings. Would the recorder please introduce 8.1A?
Ordinance Bill Number 7-13 relating to the Comprehensive Park System Master Plan Update, amending the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you. Do we have a staff report? No.
No, Mayor.
We just need a motion. All right. Thank you.
I'll move
Counselor
staff
Dickey?
recommendation.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved by Counselor Dickey, seconded by Counselor Benars, to move the staff recommendation. Is there discussion? Counselor Dickey.
I just, this has been a very long time coming, and I just want to thank everyone who gave hours. We had many volunteers on our task force that put up with this for 2+ years, came faithfully, and we didn't always meet at regular times, and so sometimes they were asked to meet meetings, you know, just a couple weeks apart. Sometimes we'd go a couple months without meeting, and so I really appreciate just everyone who gave their time and their effort, and the staff who worked so hard on this, because it was a long process for them as well. So thank you, and we'll be happy to hopefully get this moving, and happy to see our parks progress.
Thank you. I know most of that work was done before I joined council, and there were other counselors as well on that committee, I believe. Counselor Tessler and your Counselor Nanke. Don't be shy. I just want to recognize and thank Counselor Bennett. Right. All right. Okay. Good. Good. Well, I know I've certainly heard positive comments from people that have been supporters of our park system and users of our park system, and they're very much looking forward to this. So thank you for that work. All right, there's a motion on the floor. I believe it was moved by Counselor Dickey and seconded by Counselor Benars, and we will call for the question. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And will the recorder please introduce item 8.1B?
Ordinance Bill Number 1913 relating to ambulance service franchises and agreements, amending SRC 34.638 and repealing SRC 34.633, 635, and 715.
Thank you. Counselor Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move staff recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Counselor Bennett and seconded by Counselor Clem to move staff recommendation. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll now proceed to second readings. 8.2. Will the recorder please introduce 8.2A?
Ordinance Bill Number 413 relating to the expiration and extension of subdivisions, partitions, replats, and urban growth area development permit preliminary declarations, amending SRC 63.049, 63.360, 66.050, 66.070, and 300.860, and declaring an emergency. Counselor Nanke?
Aye.
Counselor Clausen?
Aye.
Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Counselor Thomas?
Aye.
Counselor Benars?
Aye.
Counselor Clem?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. And will you please introduce Ordinance Bill 8.2C?
Ordinance Bill Number 813, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2620 Lancaster Drive Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District Number 1 and the East Salem Service District. Councilor Clausen?
Aye.
Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilor Benars?
Aye.
Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
Aye.
Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. Thank you. The ordinance passes. Will the recorder please introduce the next ordinance?
Ordinance Bill Number 913, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at the 1900 block of Wallace Road Northwest, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilor Benars?
Aye.
Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
Yes, yes, yes.
Councilor I'm getting ahead of myself. Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor Clausen?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. Ordinance passes. And would you please introduce 8.2D?
Ordinance Bill Number 1013, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2395 Dokes Ferry Road Northwest, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilor Benards?
Aye.
Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
Aye.
Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor Clausen?
Aye.
Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. Ordinance bill passes. And 8.2E,
Ordinance Bill Number 1113, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2540 Brush College Road Northwest, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councilor Benars?
Aye.
Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
Aye.
Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor Clausen?
Aye.
Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
aye. Ordinance bill passes. And 8.2F,
Ordinance Bill Number 1213, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2800 block of Orchard Heights Road Northwest, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
Aye.
Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor Clausen?
Aye.
Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilor Benards?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
aye. The ordinance passes. And 8.2G,
Ordinance Bill Number 1313, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 4573 Center Street Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District Number 1, Suburban East Salem Water District, and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. Councilor Bennett?
Aye.
Councilor Tessler?
Aye.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor Clausen? Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilor Benards?
Aye.
Councilor Clem?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
aye. The ordinance bill passes. 8.2H,
Madam Mayor?
yes, sir. Councilor Bennett.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move staff recommendation to amend the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Bennett and seconded by Councilor Thomas. Is there discussion?
I'd like to have Glenn Gross explain the changes in the amended ordinance.
Thank
if
you.
that's
All
okay.
right. Mr. Gross?
Good evening. I'm Glenn Gross, Planning Administrator. About a week ago, Councilor Bennett, City Manager Norris, and I were meeting with Representative Brian Clem in his office to talk about some pending annexation bills and some concerns we had with them. And I might add, before I go on, that was a very, I thought that was a very cordial and productive meeting that we had. But in any case, during the course of the meeting, Representative Clem brought up this particular annexation case. He had been contacted by one of the property owners who has expressed concern that his property that was used for residential and he was under the impression zoned for residential was not being recommended for the 3-year delay. And if I could just for a moment give you a little bit of a backdrop here. A few years ago, the state passed a law that said for enclave annexations, and enclaves annexations, remember, are those islands of unincorporated area completely surrounded by the city, where the city can annex those even if the property owner is not willing to be annexed. So the state passed a law that said we can continue to do that, but if the property is in residential use and zoned for residential use at the time of annexation, then we're obligated to put it on a 3-year delay before the annexation takes effect. That's the purpose of that, is to give the property owner time to weigh their options, decide whether they want to come into the city, probably pay higher property taxes, or if not, find a different place to go. So in any case, in this case, the property owner is zoned UD in the county, Marion County, and that zone is kind of like our commercial office zone. It allows residential, but we wouldn't consider it a residential zone. That UD zone allowed the residential, but our staff looked at it and didn't consider it a residential zone. The property owner had a different opinion of it. The representative said, do you guys want to take a look at this at your local level, or do you want me to take a look at it from a statewide legislative approach? And we said we'll be happy to take a look at it. We have. That's what the staff report is about. I think it shows a fairly minor tax revenue implication if we grant the 3-year delay. All things considered, we think that's probably the best thing to do with this particular annexation.
Thank you very much. Are there questions by any counselors? Councillor Benars?
I just want a little clarity. So why is this one on a 3-year delay and not the others?
This is an enclave annexation.
None of the others
I'm
are?
sorry. Go ahead.
None of the others are enclave?
There are. Can I ask Lisa?
Good evening, Lisa Anderson, Ogilvie Community Development Department. Yes, 7 of these that are tonight, including this one, so 6 others are enclaves. They don't all qualify because some of them weren't residential zoning. Do you want to know specifically which ones, or
no?
So the ones that are residentially zoned, there are a handful. I think 3 or 4 of the 7 do have the 3-year delay.
Thank you. I guess what I'm asking is, the other side of this is it set in the precedence?
I don't think so. This is kind of a unique situation where the zone appeared to the property owner is allowing the residential use. We can see how they would come to that conclusion. We just disagreed, but this is, I think, a fairly unique set of facts.
And I guess the last thing that I would have to say is, this has been voted on by the citizens of this city at this point. Is this going to be going against what the citizens voted on, in essence?
No, we looked at that. We looked at what actually went on the ballot, and the ballot did not refer to this 3-year delay. So the voters didn't vote on it as being a 3-year delay.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Gross? All right. Would the recorder please introduce the amended ordinance? Oh, we have to vote on the amendment first.
On the motion. Yes.
On the motion. All right. It's been moved by Councillor Bennett and seconded by Councillor Thomas. Yes, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Now, the recorder, could you please introduce the amended ordinance?
Yes. Amendments Ordinance Bill Number 1413, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 4790 and 4810 Auburn Road Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. Councillor Tessler?
Aye.
Councillor Nanke?
Aye.
Councillor Clausen?
Aye.
Councillor Dickey?
Aye.
Councillor Thomas?
Aye.
Councillor Benards?
Aye.
Councillor Clem?
Aye.
Councillor Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye. Ordinance carries. 8.2I.
Ordinance Bill Number 1513, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2752 Boone Road Southeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councillor Nanke?
Aye.
Councillor Clausen?
Aye.
Councillor Dickey?
Aye.
Councillor Thomas?
Aye.
Councillor Benards?
Aye.
Councillor Clem?
Aye.
Councillor Bennett?
Aye.
Councillor Tessler?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye. The ordinance passes. 8.2J,
Ordinance Bill Number 1613, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 4800 through 4900 block of 32nd Avenue Southeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District and Santiam Water Control District. Counselor Clausen?
Aye.
Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Counselor Thomas?
Aye.
Counselor Bernards?
Aye.
Counselor Clem?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler?
Aye.
Counselor Nanki?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. The ordinance passes. Will you please introduce the next ordinance?
Ordinance Bill Number 1813, declaring and proclaiming certain territory located at 2400 block of Walker Road Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District Number 1. Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Counselor Thomas?
Aye.
Counselor Bernards?
Aye.
Counselor Clem?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler?
Aye.
Counselor Nanki?
Aye.
Counselor Clausen?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. The ordinance bill passes. And the last one, item L.
Ordinance Bill Number 2013, relating to the Salem Downtown Economic Improvement District, amending SRC 44.035. Counselor Thomas?
Aye.
Counselor Bernards?
Aye.
Counselor Clem?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Tessler?
Aye.
Counselor Nanki?
Aye.
Counselor Clausen?
Aye.
Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson.
Aye. The ordinance bill passes. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Hall. Those were a lot of ordinances
You're very welcome.
tonight. All right, we have public comment, and we have one individual, Jonathan Faley. I'm not saying that right, am I? Please correct me. Fahey, thank you. Welcome, and you'll have 3 minutes. At the end of 2 minutes, the amber light comes on, and at the end of 3, the red light comes on.
Can I have room for bench, Madam Mayor?
Oh, well, I don't think so, actually. Our procedure is that you need to stay at the podium. Thank you.
But he's already with fusion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councilors
Yes.
and staff and viewers. I come to you in regards to the last ordinance that you just passed, and that is our Economic Improvement District. My name is Jonathan Fahey. I and my mother own a business at 270 Commercial Street in downtown Salem. The bill that just passed, I believe, is the termination agreement with the Salem Downtown Partnership, which is the contract. No?
No, it
actually,
isn't.
this had to do with the city being able to carry out the services
Okay.
for a transition.
Forgive
period.
me there.
Okay.
In other words, our downtown economic improvement district was organized by a group that will no longer be receiving the funds to organize their efforts for promotion of downtown. I come to council today seeking guidance in how we at Create a Memory can contribute to the success of our vital economic, or our vital downtown. I know through reading some of the articles in the newspaper, as well as talking with other local business owners and merchants within our downtown creative district, that there's an absence of camaraderie. There's an absence of the willingness to work together. So I propose the idea to you tonight, very similar to the idea of Lincoln City with the Finders Keepers program. You all have invitations in front of you to join us at our studio to start the discussions of how we can work together. The image of the glass flower here was created at our studio, and we ask that you come create one of these as well. These would be placed within the Economic Improvement District and encouraged through downtown advocacy partners such as Travel Salem, our downtown partnership, other organizations, including but not limited to Salem Hospital, Willamette University, and other partners, like I said, to encourage the hunt in Salem, to promote tourism and to promote our downtown merchants, some of the lifeblood that lives down there. My request is engage me. I want to know how I can help you help us. It comes to a point where I'm at a loss of what to do for activities for First Wednesdays, which I believe are losing sponsorship. So I come to council today. Sorry I don't come as prepared as I would like to be, but I do have more information that should be arriving at your doorstep shortly. March 11th is the date that I hope that you can mark in your calendars to join me at our studio. It is a Monday, I believe, and we are generally closed on Mondays. So I'm inviting the council here, in addition to a few other appropriate business leaders and some of our participating merchants within downtown, to start the discussion of how to promote Salem and how to promote some of the fun, vibrant, colorful activities that our downtown has to offer. And I thank you for your time and hope that you will engage in this and we can see where this partnership can lead us. I guess I would open up at this time if there was any questions or if I could provide any information. I know we will create, our portion is going to be donating 200 of the fused glass flowers to go into our community during the month of April. First Wednesday event that we are hosting, regardless if there's support from the rest of the community, is April Showers Seek Salem's Flowers. So that is kind of just the catchy little, I love this town. I've born and raised, I went out of here and came back to work in my mother's business, and we're excited to be downtown. We moved down here 3 years ago and excited to look forward to the things in the future. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, and thank you for coming down tonight, and thank you for the support that you've been giving and that you obviously want to continue giving to the downtown. We certainly do appreciate that. This entire council, I know I can speak for the council, but they may want to speak for themselves as well. The downtown is a high priority for our council and for our city. Perhaps our city manager might like to talk a little bit about your plans.
Yes, and I've had an opportunity to talk to Jonathan in a few weeks, because we're going to be in Washington, D.C. for a week. But I'm going to ask various stakeholders from downtown to get together and we want to listen to them about what services they think are most critical and start brainstorming about how, what role the city can play and then what role the private sector can play. And definitely we'll include you in that, and I think your idea is really interesting. Thank you. So we'll talk more about that.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Were there counselors with any questions or comments? I think we just all appreciate you coming down. Appreciate you waiting through the entire meeting for this time.
All I know is, though, that if I can add, if I have just a moment, our intent, or my intent, is to bring together some of the symbolism that this particular piece has to me. Being that it's fused glass, each one of these pieces is put together and bonded together through a kiln. So through heat, through some of the things that we work together. That energy creates heat, and each one of these kind of represents each little piece of our community. And I believe that through an event such as this and through the cooperation of many stakeholders, including the city and some of our other downtown advocacy partners, that we can see a brighter future amongst the downtown core.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Government creates heat too.
All right. Under new business on your agenda, you have in your packets the mayor's motion that I put forward regarding board membership on the Downtown Advisory Board for Carol Smith. And I propose this motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I've proposed the motion, and it's been seconded by Councilor Clem to remove Carol Smith from the membership of the Downtown Advisory Board for the term which ends December 31st, 2013. Are there any questions? We'll move for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Thank you. Motion passes with a no vote by Councilor Thomas. I have no further business. We have no councilors' items, and so we are adjourned.